A desperate knock at midnight, a billionaire's impossible request, a child's future hanging by a thread. When Lucas Bennett opened his door at 12:07 a.m., he never imagined the woman standing there, drenched, trembling, powerful, would shatter everything he'd carefully rebuilt. Her plea was insane. Her deadline was impossible. But the little boy she was fighting for, that changed everything. This is the story of how a single signature became a lifeline, how a fake marriage became real, and how three broken people became a family. Stay until the end. Hit like. Comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Seattle wore its gloom like a second skin, the kind of persistent drizzle that seeped into bones and made everything feel heavier. Lucas Bennett sat alone in his small apartment on the third floor of a converted brick building in Fremont, listening to water drum against the windows. The clock on his microwave blinked 12:04 a.m. He should have been asleep. Today, technically, was Saturday, and he had his daughter Emma for the weekend. 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, obsessed with dinosaurs. She'd want to go to the Pacific Science Center like always, and Lucas would take her, just like he did every other weekend since the divorce 3 years ago. Routine, control, predictability. That's what had saved him when everything fell apart. Lucas took a sip of cold coffee from a mug that read, "World's Okayest Dad," a gag gift from his brother that had somehow become his favorite, and stared at the manuscript spread across his kitchen table. He was a freelance editor, mostly technical manuals and the occasional self-published novel. It paid the bills. It kept him home. It kept life simple. Simple was safe. The pounding shattered that illusion. 3 thunderous knocks, urgent, almost violent, against his front door. Lucas jerked upright, coffee sloshing over the rim of his mug. His first thought was fire. His second was Emma, but no, she was with her mother this week. His third thought didn't fully form before the knocking came again, harder this time. Jesus! He grabbed a dish towel, wiped his hands, and crossed the small living room in 4 strides. He checked the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, soaked to the skin, dark hair plastered to her face. Even through the distorted fisheye lens, Lucas recognized her instantly. His stomach dropped. Sienna. He unlocked the deadbolt and yanked the door open. She stood there shivering, water dripping from the hem of an expensive-looking coat that probably cost more than his rent. Her eyes, sharp, gray, always so controlled, were rimmed red. In her trembling hands, she clutched a manila folder. "Lucas," her voice cracked. "I need you to sign something." He blinked. "What?" "Please." She stepped forward, and Lucas instinctively moved aside. Sienna Hale swept into his apartment like a hurricane, trailing rainwater across his cheap laminate floors. "I know this is insane. I know you have every reason to slam that door in my face, but I'm out of options." Lucas shut the door slowly, his mind struggling to catch up. He hadn't seen Sienna in over a year, not since the divorce was finalized and his ex-wife Victoria made it crystal clear that her family, including her younger sister, was no longer Lucas's concern. "Sienna, it's midnight. What are you—" "I need a husband." Silence. Lucas stared at her. "Excuse me?" Sienna set the folder on his coffee table with shaking hands. Her coat dripped onto the upholstery. She didn't seem to notice. "I need to be married by tomorrow. Legally, documented, real." "You what?" "Saturday," she repeated, her voice hollow. "I have a custody hearing Monday morning. If I walk into that courtroom unmarried, I lose my son." Lucas felt the floor tilt beneath him. "Noah?" "Yes?" Her composure cracked, just for a second, and he saw the rawness underneath. "They're going to take him, Lucas. My ex, he came back. After 3 years of nothing, he came back with lawyers and a new wife, and this perfect fucking image, and they're going to take my son away from me unless I can prove I have stability." "Stability?" Lucas echoed, numb. "A family, a partner, a stable home environment." Sienna gestured at the folder. "My lawyer drew these up. It's a marriage contract, temporary. 1 year minimum for legal purposes, but we can dissolve it after the custody case is settled. You'd be compensated, generously. I just need—" "Why me?" Lucas cut her off. His voice came out harder than he intended. "You're Sienna Hale. You run a tech empire. You have resources I can't even imagine. Why the hell would you show up at my door in the middle of the night asking me to marry you? Sienna met his gaze. For a moment, she looked exactly like she had 4 years ago at his wedding to Victoria, quiet, watchful, standing at the edge of every family photo, like she didn't quite belong. Because you're the only person I trust, she said simply. Lucas laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You don't even know me. I know you better than you think. Sienna pulled off her soaked coat and draped it over a chair, moving with the kind of exhausted efficiency that came from too many sleepless nights. You were married to my sister for 6 years. I watched you, Lucas. I watched you show up to every family dinner even when Victoria's parents treated you like you weren't good enough. I watched you take care of Emma when Victoria was too busy climbing the corporate ladder. I watched you rebuild your entire life after the divorce without bad-mouthing her once. That's called being a decent person. That's called integrity, Sienna interrupted. And it's exactly what I need right now. Not money, not connections. Just someone who won't use this against me later. Someone who won't see my son as leverage. She opened the folder, pulling out a thick stack of papers. I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking you to help me keep my son. Lucas stared at the documents. Legal jargon swam across the pages. Terms, conditions, stipulations. His eyes caught on phrases like spousal support waiver and non-disclosure agreement and termination clause. This was insane. Sienna, he rubbed his face. I can't just... People don't get married like this. This isn't some rom-com. This is fraud. It's legal, she countered. My lawyer made sure. We're two consenting adults entering a marriage contract. The reasons don't matter. They matter to me. Lucas looked at her, really looked at her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands hadn't stopped shaking. This wasn't the composed billionaire he'd seen from a distance at family events. This was someone drowning. What happened? Why is your ex doing this now? Sienna's jaw tightened. Because he can. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. She turned away, walking to the window that overlooked the rain-slicked street. Marcus left when I was 7 months pregnant, said he wasn't ready to be a father, signed away his rights. I raised Noah alone, built my company, made it work. Her reflection in the glass looked ghostly. Then 6 months ago, Marcus got married, some socialite from old money. Suddenly he wants to play daddy. Suddenly he's got this picture-perfect life, and I'm the unstable single mother who works too much. That's bullshit. That's what his lawyers are arguing. Sienna's voice went flat. They pulled up every late night I worked, every business trip, every nanny I hired. They're painting me as absent, neglectful. They're saying Noah deserves a complete family. And you think showing up with a husband will fix that? I think it's my only shot. She turned to face him. I'm not stupid, Lucas. I know this is a Band-Aid. But if I can show the judge that I have a stable home, a partner, someone who's choosing to be part of Noah's life, maybe it's enough. Maybe it tips the scales. Lucas sank onto the arm of his couch. His coffee had gone completely cold. This is insane. I know. You're asking me to lie to a court. I'm asking you to marry me. Sienna crossed the room, crouching down so they were eye level. Up close, he could see the desperation in her expression, the kind that came from fighting and losing and being down to your last move. Everything else is semantics. I have a daughter, Lucas said quietly. Emma. She's 8. If I do this, if this blows up somehow, it affects her too. It won't blow up. The contract protects both of us. And Emma never has to know the details. As far as anyone's concerned, we reconnected after your divorce and fell in love. Nobody's going to believe that. They believed you and Victoria. Sienna's voice went soft. Why wouldn't they believe this? Because Victoria made sense, Lucas wanted to say. Victoria was ambitious and driven and exactly the kind of woman his mother always said he should marry. Their relationship had been predictable, comfortable, built on shared goals and mutual respect. At least, that's what he told himself before she served him divorce papers. What does Noah know? Lucas asked instead. Sienna's expression shifted, softened. He knows he might have to go live with his father. He doesn't understand why. He's 3, Lucas. He just knows that Mama's been crying a lot and scary people keep asking him questions. Something in Lucas's chest twisted. He thought of Emma at 3, tiny, trusting, convinced her parents would protect her from everything. Then the divorce happened, and he'd watched that certainty crack. Can I meet him? The words came out before Lucas fully processed them. Before I decide, I want to meet Noah. Sienna's eyes widened. You're considering this. I'm insane for considering this, Lucas corrected. But yeah, if you're asking me to be part of his life, even temporarily, I want to meet him first. For the first time since she'd appeared at his door, Sienna smiled. It was small, fragile, but real. He's in the car. What? I couldn't leave him home alone. She was already moving toward the door. My nanny quit last week. Couldn't handle the stress of the custody battle. I've been doing everything myself. Lucas followed her into the hallway, down 2 flights of stairs and out into the rain. A black SUV idled at the curb, wipers cutting through the downpour. Sienna opened the back door. A car seat held a small figure bundled in a blue jacket. The overhead light clicked on, illuminating a little boy with dark curls and enormous gray eyes. Sienna's eyes. Noah, sweetheart. Sienna unbuckled him gently. This is Mama's friend Lucas. Can you say hi? Noah rubbed his eyes, clutching a stuffed elephant. Hi. Lucas crouched down, rain soaking through his shirt. Hey, buddy, that's a cool elephant. His name is Peanut. Noah held the toy out for inspection. He's scared of the rain. Yeah? Me too, sometimes. Lucas glanced at Sienna, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. You want to come inside where it's dry? Noah considered this seriously, then nodded. They went back upstairs, Lucas carrying Noah while Sienna grabbed an overnight bag from the trunk. The apartment suddenly felt smaller with the 3 of them inside. Lucas cleared the papers from his coffee table while Sienna helped Noah out of his wet jacket. You have juice? Noah asked, looking around with wide eyes. Apple juice? Okay. Lucas poured juice into a plastic cup he usually used for iced coffee, making a mental note that it was probably not appropriate for toddlers. Noah didn't seem to care. He climbed onto the couch, Peanut the elephant clutched in one arm, and surveyed the room like a tiny king. You have a lot of books, he observed. I like reading, Lucas said. Mama reads to me every night. Noah took a sip of juice. Even when she's tired. Sienna stood by the kitchen counter, arms wrapped around herself. She looked wrecked, exhausted and terrified, and trying desperately not to show it in front of her son. Lucas made a decision he'd probably regret. Hey, Noah, he said gently. How about you watch cartoons for a few minutes while I talk to your mom? Okay. Noah was already reaching for the remote. Lucas found a kids' channel, some brightly colored show about talking animals, and gestured for Sienna to follow him into the kitchen. They stood on opposite sides of the narrow counter, speaking in low voices while cartoon theme music played in the background. If I do this, Lucas began, I need you to understand something. I don't do things halfway. If I'm going to be this kid's stepfather, even temporarily, I'm going to actually show up. I'm going to be present. I'm not going to phone it in. Sienna's throat worked. Okay. And when this is over, when the custody case is settled and we dissolve the marriage, we do it clean. No drama. No using each other. We figure out how to explain it to Noah in a way that doesn't mess him up. Agreed. Lucas looked past her at the little boy on his couch, now giggling at whatever the cartoon animals were doing. 3 years old. The same age Emma had been when his marriage fell apart. He'd promised himself he wouldn't get involved in anyone else's mess. That he'd keep his life simple, controlled, predictable. But standing there, watching Noah laugh, seeing the desperate hope in Sienna's eyes, Lucas realized some promises were meant to be broken. I'll do it, he said quietly. I'll marry you. Sienna's knees actually buckled. She caught herself on the counter, one hand pressed to her mouth. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. Don't. Lucas held up a hand. Don't thank me yet. We don't know if this is going to work. It will. Her voice was fierce. It has to. They stayed up until 3 a.m., going through the contract page by page. Lucas made notes in the margins, crossed out clauses that seemed predatory, insisted on adding protections for Emma. Sienna agreed to everything without argument. By the time they finished, Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, curled around Peanut. Sienna covered him with a throw blanket, smoothing his dark curls with a tenderness that made Lucas's chest ache. "The courthouse opens at 9, she whispered. "We can get the license and have a judge perform the ceremony same day if we pay the expedite fee." "Romantic," Lucas muttered. Sienna almost smiled. "I'll pick you up at 8:30. "I have Emma this weekend. I need to—" "Bring her." Sienna's expression was serious. "If we're doing this, Lucas, we're doing it right. Emma should meet Noah. She should know what's happening." Lucas thought about trying to explain this to his 8-year-old daughter. "Hey, sweetie, remember Aunt Sienna from when I was married to your mom? Well, we're getting married tomorrow so she doesn't lose custody of her son. Pass the syrup?" "This is going to be a disaster," he said. "Probably." Sienna gathered the signed papers, sliding them back into the folder. "But it's the best disaster I've got." After she left, carrying Noah in her arms, the little boy's head on her shoulder, Lucas stood in his quiet apartment and wondered what the hell he'd just agreed to. His phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Lucas didn't reply. He just stared at the message until his screen went dark, listening to the rain, and tried to convince himself he hadn't just made the biggest mistake of his life. Saturday morning. Emma arrived at 7 a.m., a whirlwind of energy and questions. "Dad, can we get pancakes? Did you know that velociraptors were actually only about 3 feet tall? Mrs. Henderson said we're doing a field trip to the zoo next month, but I want to go to the museum because—" "Dad? Are you listening?" Lucas looked up from where he'd been staring at his coffee. "Yeah, sweetheart. Museum, velociraptors. Got it." Emma narrowed her eyes. She had her mother's sharp gaze, could spot bullshit from a mile away, even at 8 years old. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." "You're making your worried face." "I don't have a worried face." "You totally do. Your eyebrows get all scrunchy," Emma demonstrated, wrinkling her forehead in an exaggerated frown. "Like that," Lucas sighed. "Okay, we need to talk." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Lucas had signed away his predictable life at 3 a.m., and he tried to figure out how to explain the inexplicable. "Do you remember Aunt Sienna?" He started carefully. Emma's face scrunched up. "Mom's sister? The quiet one?" "Yeah, well, she needs some help, and I'm going to help her." "What kind of help?" Lucas took a breath. "She has a little boy named Noah. He's 3, and there are some grown-up problems happening, and the best way I can help is by marrying Aunt Sienna." Silence. Emma blinked. "Like actually marrying her with a wedding?" "More like going to a courthouse and signing papers." "But you're going to be married?" "Yes." "To Aunt Sienna?" "Yes." Emma processed this with the serious consideration of a Supreme Court justice. "Does Mom know?" "Not yet." Lucas rubbed his temples. "I'll tell her." "She's going to be so mad." "Probably." "Is Aunt Sienna nice?" The question surprised him. "Yeah, sweetheart, she's nice." "And she has a little kid who needs help?" "Yeah." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay then." Lucas stared at his daughter. "That's it? Just okay?" "You're a helper, Dad." Emma said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You help people. That's what you do." Something in Lucas's chest cracked. He pulled Emma into a hug, pressing his face into her hair that smelled like her mother's expensive shampoo. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just noticed." The doorbell rang at exactly 8:30. Sienna stood on the other side, looking marginally more put together than she had 6 hours ago. She wore a simple gray dress and had clearly attempted to do something with her hair. Noah clutched her hand, eyes wide, as he took in the hallway. "Hi," Sienna said, quietly. "Hi," Lucas replied. They stared at each other. Emma pushed past Lucas. "I'm Emma. You're getting married to my dad." Sienna's lips twitched. "That's the plan." "Cool. Who's this?" Emma crouched down to Noah's level. "Hi, I'm Emma. That's a really cool elephant." Noah hugged Peanut closer. "He doesn't like strangers." "That's okay. I don't like strangers either." Emma grinned. "Want to see my dinosaur books? I have like 100. Noah looked up at his mother. Sienna nodded. Go ahead, baby. The two kids disappeared into Lucas's living room. Adult Noah and Sienna stood in the doorway, and Lucas was struck by the surreal absurdity of the moment. You ready? Sienna asked. Lucas thought about his empty apartment, his predictable routine, his carefully controlled life. Then he thought about the little boy now excitedly examining Emma's dinosaur collection, and the woman who'd shown up in the rain because she'd run out of options. Yeah, he said. Let's go get married. The King County Courthouse was everything a government building should be: gray, efficient, and vaguely depressing. They filled out forms, they paid fees, they provided documentation that yes, they were both legally able to marry, and no, they weren't closely related. The clerk who processed their paperwork looked like she'd seen everything and was impressed by none of it. Judge Martinez can perform the ceremony at 11, she said in a monotone. Third floor, room 304. Bring 2 witnesses. They brought Emma and Noah. Room 304 was barely larger than Lucas's kitchen. Judge Martinez was a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain and the practiced smile of someone who'd married hundreds of couples. Well, she said, looking at the odd group before her, this is certainly unique. Are these your children? Yes, Sienna and Lucas said simultaneously. Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. All right then, let's begin. The ceremony lasted approximately 4 minutes. There were no vows, no rings, no music or flowers or anything remotely romantic, just legal phrases about commitment and partnership, spoken in a fluorescent-lit room that smelled like old carpet. Do you, Lucas James Bennett, take Sienna Marie Hale to be your lawfully wedded wife? Lucas looked at Sienna. She looked back. They were really doing this. I do. And do you, Sienna Marie Hale, take Lucas James Bennett to be your lawfully wedded husband? Sienna's voice didn't waver. I do. By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Judge Martinez closed her folder. Congratulations. You may kiss if you'd like, though it's not required. They didn't kiss. They signed the marriage certificate instead, their signatures black ink on official paper, making it real. Emma clapped. Noah looked confused. Judge Martinez shook their hands and moved on to her next appointment. And just like that, Lucas Bennett became a married man again. They stood outside the courthouse under a sky threatening more rain. Emma had convinced Noah to hold her hand, and the two of them were examining a bird pecking at crumbs on the sidewalk. So, Lucas said. So, Sienna echoed. I guess we're married now. Yeah. She twisted the plain gold band she'd bought from a jewelry store that morning. They'd needed rings for the ceremony, even if it was a formality. Lucas wore a matching one. It felt foreign on his finger. What happens now? Lucas watched Emma and Noah. His daughter was explaining something about pigeons with the confidence of a documentary narrator. Noah listened with rapt attention. Now, Lucas said, we figure out how to actually do this. Sienna's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and went pale. It's my lawyer, the custody hearing. They moved it up. What? I thought it was Monday. It was. They're saying Marcus's team requested an emergency session due to new evidence of instability. Sienna's hand shook. It's tomorrow, Sunday, 2 p.m. Lucas felt the ground shift. Jesus Christ. They know. Sienna's voice dropped to a whisper. They must know I got married. They're trying to make it look rushed, desperate. It was rushed and desperate, Lucas pointed out. I know that. She rounded on him, eyes blazing. But we can't let them prove it. We have 1 day, Lucas, 1 day to convince a judge that this is real. 1 day to become a family. Lucas looked at the ring on his finger, then at the two kids still fascinated by a pigeon, then at the woman he'd married 4 minutes ago. Okay, he said. Then we better make it count. They went to Sienna's house. Lucas had been expecting something impressive. Sienna was a billionaire after all. But he wasn't prepared for the reality. The house sat on a cliff overlooking Elliott Bay, all glass and clean lines and the kind of architecture that belonged in magazines. His entire apartment could fit in the foyer. Holy crap, Emma whispered. Dad, this place is huge. Language, Lucas said automatically. Noah ran ahead, Peanut bouncing in his grip. Come see my room. I have a spaceship bed. The kids disappeared upstairs. Lucas and Sienna stood in the massive living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and view of gray water. Look, Sienna began, I know this is overwhelming. You have a wine cellar, Lucas interrupted, staring at the glass-enclosed room visible through an archway. An actual wine cellar. I don't even drink wine. The previous owner installed it. She moved to the windows, arms wrapped around herself. This house is too big for two people. I bought it thinking, I don't know what I was thinking, that Noah would grow up here. That maybe someday it would feel like home instead of a museum. Lucas walked over to stand beside her. Below, the water churned gray and endless. What's the plan for tomorrow, for the hearing? My lawyer wants to meet us tonight. Go over strategy, prep our testimony. Sienna's reflection in the glass looked haunted. They're going to ask how we met, how long we've been together, why we got married so suddenly. We need our story straight. We tell them the truth, Lucas said. Sienna turned to him sharply. The truth? Not the whole truth, but close enough. Lucas had been thinking about this since they left the courthouse. We say we reconnected after my divorce, that we'd always had a connection during my marriage to Victoria, but never acted on it. After the divorce, we started talking more, became friends, then more than friends. And the sudden marriage? We wanted to make it official before the custody hearing. Show Marcus you had support. It's not technically a lie. Sienna studied him. You're better at this than I expected. At lying? At strategy. Something shifted in her expression. Thank you, Lucas, for doing this. She gestured vaguely at everything, all of it. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive tomorrow. Upstairs, they heard Emma shriek with laughter, followed by Noah's delighted giggling. The sound echoed through the enormous house, making it feel less empty. Sienna smiled, small but genuine. Want to see what they're doing? They found the kids in Noah's room, which did indeed have a spaceship bed and enough toys to stock a small store. Emma had built an elaborate fort using pillows and blankets, and Noah was arranging his stuffed animals inside it. This is the dinosaur rescue station, Emma explained seriously. Peanut is the leader because elephants are smart. Very smart, Noah agreed. Lucas leaned against the doorframe next to Sienna, and for a moment, just a moment, this almost felt normal, like they were just two parents watching their kids play, like they weren't strangers bound by a desperate contract, like this was real. Sienna's lawyer arrived at 7 p.m. Veronica Chen was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with the kind of presence that commanded attention. She sat up in Sienna's dining room, spreading documents across the marble table while Lucas tried not to think about how much the chairs probably cost. All right, Veronica began, clicking open a pen. Let's talk about tomorrow. Marcus's team is going to come at you hard, Sienna. They're going to paint you as calculating, cold, using this marriage as a prop. She's not, Lucas started. I know that, you know that, but they're going to try to make the judge believe otherwise. Veronica turned to him. Which means you, Lucas, are our secret weapon. Me? You're genuine, likable, a single dad who rebuilt his life after divorce. You're the stability Marcus's team is claiming Sienna doesn't have. Veronica tapped her pen against her notes. We need to present you two as a united front, a real couple. Can you do that? Lucas looked at Sienna across the table. They'd known each other for years, but only at a distance, only through the filter of family obligations and polite small talk. Now they were supposed to convince a judge they were in love. Yeah, he said. We can do that. They rehearsed until midnight. Veronica drilled them on every possible question, every angle of attack. Where did you meet? How did you fall in love? Why now? What do you see in each other? How do you plan to co-parent? What makes you think this will work? By the end, Lucas's head pounded. Sienna looked gray with exhaustion. Get some sleep, Veronica finally said, packing up her briefcase. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. You need to be sharp. After she left, the house fell quiet. Emma and Noah had crashed hours ago, passed out in the pillow fort. Lucas found them there, a tangle of small limbs and stuffed animals. I should get them to actual beds, he murmured. Sienna appeared beside him. Leave them. They look comfortable. They stood in the doorway, watching the kids sleep. I haven't seen him this happy in months, Sienna whispered. He's been so anxious about everything, but tonight, with Emma. Her voice cracked. Thank you for bringing her, for letting Noah have this. Lucas wanted to say something reassuring, something confident. Instead, he just stood there, shoulder to shoulder with his brand new wife, and hoped like hell tomorrow wouldn't destroy everything. Sunday. The hearing. The family court building was different from the courthouse where they'd gotten married. Newer, cleaner, somehow more intimidating. Marcus Westfield arrived with an entourage. Lucas recognized him from photos Sienna had shown him. Tall, conventionally handsome, expensive suit, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. His new wife, Bethany, clung to his arm like an accessory. Young, blonde, looked like she'd stepped out of a country club catalog. Marcus's eyes landed on Sienna, then traveled to Lucas with barely concealed disdain. So you actually went through with it? Marcus, Sienna's voice could have cut glass. We're not doing this here. Doing what? Acknowledging that you married some random guy days before our hearing? He laughed, cold, calculated. My lawyers are going to have a field day with this. Lucas stepped forward. We're here for Noah, that's it. Marcus looked him up and down. And you are? Her husband. Something flashed in Marcus's eyes, anger maybe, or satisfaction that his opponent had made a desperate move. Right, the rebound. How long did you two know each other before the shotgun wedding? A week? We've known each other for years, Lucas said evenly. And how long did you know Bethany before you decided to play dad? Bethany flinched. Marcus's jaw tightened. Gentlemen, Veronica appeared at Sienna's other side. Let's save it for the courtroom, shall we? They were ushered into a wood-paneled room that smelled like old law books. Judge Catherine Brennan presided, a stern woman in her 50s who looked like she'd heard every lie, every excuse, every manipulation tactic in the book. This was it. Lucas sat next to Sienna at the respondents' table. Across the aisle, Marcus and his team looked ready for war. Judge Brennan called the hearing to order. Marcus's lawyer, a silver-haired man named Davidson, who probably charged more per hour than Lucas made in a month, stood first. Your Honor, we're here because my client's son is living in an unstable environment. Ms. Hale, despite her financial resources, has demonstrated a pattern of neglect and poor judgment that makes her unfit for primary custody. Lucas felt Sienna tense beside him. Davidson continued, flipping through a document. She works 70, 80-hour weeks. She's hired and fired 6 nannies in the past year. She's constantly traveling for business, leaving her son in the care of strangers. And now, he paused for dramatic effect. She's entered into a marriage of convenience just days before this hearing, clearly attempting to manipulate this court. Veronica stood. Objection. Counsel is making assumptions about my client's personal life without evidence. I have evidence. Davidson produced a manila folder. Credit card receipts showing Ms. Hale purchased wedding rings yesterday morning, a marriage license dated less than 48 hours ago. Neighbors who've never seen this husband at her residence. This is a sham marriage, Your Honor, and everyone in this room knows it. Lucas's heart hammered. This was falling apart already. Judge Brennan looked at Sienna. Ms. Hale, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to these allegations. When did you and Mr. Bennett begin your relationship? Sienna stood. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. We've known each other for 6 years, Your Honor. Lucas was married to my sister. After their divorce 3 years ago, we reconnected. Started as friends, became more. And you married him 2 days ago. Yes. That seems rushed. It was. Sienna's voice stayed steady. But I wanted Lucas to be part of this process, to show the court and to show my son that he has people who choose to stand by him. Is the timing convenient? Yes. Is it genuine? Also, yes. Davidson scoffed. Your Honor. I'll hear from Mr. Bennett, Judge Brennan interrupted. She looked directly at Lucas. Mr. Bennett, you're a divorced single father yourself. Why would you enter into a marriage days before a contentious custody hearing? Lucas stood slowly, every eye in the room fixed on him. He thought about Noah's giggle, About Sienna's desperation in the rain, about Emma asking if Aunt Sienna was nice, about the difference between what was legally true and what was actually real. Your Honor, he began, I'm not going to pretend this situation is typical. It's not. But I'm also not going to pretend I'm here for some noble reason. I'm here because Sienna asked for help, and I said yes. Davidson opened his mouth. Lucas kept talking. I've watched her with Noah. I've seen how hard she fights for him. Yeah, she works a lot. She runs a company. But when she's with her son, she's completely present. She reads to him every night, even when she's exhausted. She knows his favorite foods, his fears, the exact right way to hold Peanut the elephant so Noah can fall asleep. Lucas's voice roughened. I'm a father, too. I know what it looks like when a parent shows up, and Sienna shows up every single day. That's very touching, Davidson said dryly. But it doesn't change the fact that this marriage is a convenience. It's not convenient, Lucas cut him off. It's messy and complicated and probably insane. But you know what? So is family. Real family. And maybe we're doing this backwards. Maybe we're figuring it out as we go, but we're doing it for the right reasons. Judge Brennan's expression was unreadable. And what reasons are those, Mr. Bennett? Lucas looked at Sienna. She looked back. Because kids deserve parents who fight for them, he said quietly. And I'm willing to fight. Silence filled the courtroom. Then Marcus stood. Your Honor, this is clearly rehearsed testimony. Mr. Westfield, sit down. Judge Brennan's tone was sharp. I'll hear from you when it's your turn. The hearing dragged on for 3 more hours. They called witnesses, former nannies who testified about Sienna's demanding work schedule, neighbors who rarely saw her home, business associates who confirmed her long hours. Then Veronica called her own witnesses. Noah's pediatrician, who spoke about Sienna's involvement in every appointment, his preschool teacher, who described detailed notes Sienna left each morning about Noah's mood and needs, a child psychologist who'd evaluated Noah and found him well-adjusted, secure, loved. Through it all, Lucas and Sienna sat side by side. They didn't touch. That would have looked staged, but there was something solid about their presence together. Finally, Judge Brennan called for a recess. Lucas and Sienna stepped into the hallway. Emma was there with Veronica's assistant, playing a game on someone's phone. Noah was asleep in a portable stroller. How did it go? Emma whispered. We don't know yet, sweetheart, Lucas said. They waited. 30 minutes felt like hours. When they were called back in, Judge Brennan's expression gave nothing away. I've reviewed all testimony and evidence, she began. This is a difficult case. On one hand, I have Mr. Westfield's concerns about stability and Ms. Hale's demanding career. On the other hand, I have significant evidence of maternal involvement and attachment. Lucas held his breath. Regarding the marriage, Judge Brennan looked directly at them. I'm not naive. I know strategic marriages happen, especially in custody cases. However, I'm also not in the business of determining what makes a relationship real. What I care about is what's best for the child. She paused. I'm granting primary physical custody to Ms. Hale. Sienna's hand flew to her mouth. However, Judge Brennan continued, Mr. Westfield will have supervised visitation every other weekend, with the possibility of unsupervised visits after 6 months pending behavioral evaluations. Additionally, I'm ordering family counseling for Noah to ensure this transition is handled appropriately. The gavel came down. It was over. They won. Outside the courthouse, Sienna collapsed against the stone wall and sobbed. Huge, gasping cries of relief and exhaustion and victory. Lucas stood nearby, unsure what to do, until she reached for him blindly and he pulled her into his arms. Thank you, she whispered into his shoulder. Thank you. Thank you. You did this, Lucas said. You fought for him. I just stood there. You stood there when no one else would. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. That's everything. Emma appeared with Noah, who'd woken up cranky from his nap. Mama, why are you crying? Sienna scooped him up, pressing kisses to his curly hair. Happy tears, baby. Just happy tears. Noah patted her face. Don't be sad. I'm not. I promise. She looked at Lucas over Noah's head, and for the first time since she'd appeared at his door in the rain, she smiled, really smiled. We won. Yeah, Lucas said softly. We did. They went back to Sienna's house. Veronica ordered pizza. Emma and Noah demolished an entire box while recounting their day to each other in overlapping, excited chatter. Lucas stood on the deck overlooking the bay, watching the sun set through the clouds. The water had turned from gray to silver to gold. Sienna joined him wrapped in a blanket. So, she said. So, we're married. Legally speaking, yes. She laughed, tired but genuine. What happens now? Lucas thought about the contract still sitting in his apartment. 1 year minimum, dissolution after the custody case settled, clean break, except nothing about this felt clean. I guess we figure it out, he said. One day at a time. Sienna pulled the blanket tighter. I meant what I said in court about wanting you to be part of this. Even after whatever this becomes. I'm not going anywhere, Lucas heard himself say. Not yet, anyway. She looked at him, really looked, like she was trying to see past the surface. Why did you really say yes? That night I showed up at your door? Lucas considered lying, considered saying something noble about helping people or doing the right thing. Instead, he told the truth. Because I know what it's like to lose, he said quietly. When Victoria left, when I had to split custody of Emma, when my whole life fell apart, I felt helpless. Watching someone take my daughter away half the time, knowing I couldn't do anything to stop it. He shook his head. I saw that same helplessness in your eyes, and I couldn't walk away from it. Sienna was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry you're going through this. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the light fade. Inside, Emma shrieked with laughter at something Noah did. The sound carried through the open door, warm and alive and hopeful. This is insane, right? Sienna murmured. All of it. Completely insane, Lucas agreed. But it worked. For now. For now, she echoed. And maybe that was enough. The reality of living as a married couple hit them approximately 18 hours after the courthouse victory. Lucas woke up Monday morning in a guest room that was larger than his entire apartment, disoriented by Egyptian cotton sheets and the absence of his neighbor's dog barking through the walls. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows he'd forgotten to cover, and for a confused moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then he heard it, small footsteps thundering down a hallway, followed by Emma's voice. Noah, wait! You have to put on pants first. Right. Sienna's house, his wife's house, his wife. The word still felt foreign, like a shirt that didn't quite fit. Lucas found his phone on the nightstand. 7:30 a.m. 3 missed calls from his brother, and a text from his ex-wife that just read, We need to talk. Now. Of course Victoria knew. In the age of social media and public records, a marriage license was basically a billboard announcement. He was honestly surprised she'd waited this long to blow up his phone. He pulled on jeans and a t-shirt, the same clothes he'd worn yesterday because he hadn't exactly packed for an extended stay, and ventured into the hallway. The house looked different in daylight, less like a museum and more like an extremely expensive maze. He followed the sound of chaos. The kitchen was a war zone. Emma stood on a stool at the marble island, attempting to flip pancakes with the confidence of a seasoned chef and the skill of someone who'd never operated a spatula. Batter dotted the counter. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, feeding pieces of toast to Peanut the elephant. Dad, Emma beamed, I'm making breakfast. I can see that. Lucas surveyed the damage. Where's Sienna? Conference call. Emma gestured vaguely upward with the spatula, flinging batter across the backsplash. She said to tell you she'd be down in 20 minutes and that we should definitely not try to cook anything. And yet here we are. The pancakes are learning, Emma said seriously. This one's almost not burned. Lucas crossed to the stove and gently took the spatula from his daughter. How about I handle the cooking and you handle the not setting the house on fire part? Deal. He salvaged what he could of the pancake attempt, while Emma regaled him with a detailed explanation of her plan to teach Noah about dinosaurs. Noah listened from the floor, occasionally offering commentary to Peanut. And then there's the Cretaceous period, which is when the T-Rex lived, but lots of people think dinosaurs all lived at the same time, and that's not true because… Noah, are you listening? Peanut is hungry, Noah announced. Elephants don't eat toast, Emma informed him. Mine does. Lucas plated reasonably edible pancakes and set them on the island. All right, both of you. Real food, not elephant food. They were halfway through breakfast when Sienna appeared, looking like she'd stepped out of a business magazine. Tailored pants, silk blouse, hair swept into a complicated twist. She had her phone pressed to her ear and a laptop tucked under one arm. I understand that, Gerald, but the timeline hasn't changed. The investor meeting is Thursday, and we need those projections finalized by... She paused, noticing the kitchen scene. Her expression flickered. Surprise, then something softer. Hold on. She muted the phone. You cooked. Emma cooked, Lucas corrected. I just prevented arson. I was very helpful, Emma added through a mouthful of pancake. Sienna's lips twitched. I can see that. She unmuted her phone. Gerald, I'll call you back in 10. She hung up before he could respond and set her laptop on the counter. I didn't realize you'd still be here. The statement landed awkwardly between them. I mean, not that you shouldn't be here, Sienna quickly amended. You're my husband. You should be here. I just thought maybe you'd need to go back to your apartment or... I need to get some clothes, Lucas said. And Emma has school. Right, school. Sienna looked at Emma. What grade are you in? Third? We're learning about fractions and I hate them. Fractions are useful, Sienna said automatically. That's what Dad says. You're both wrong. Noah tugged on Sienna's sleeve. Mama, can Emma come to my school? You don't go to the same school, baby. Why not? It was an innocent question, but it highlighted the fundamental strangeness of their situation. They were supposed to be a family, but they lived in different neighborhoods, went to different schools, existed in completely separate orbits. Sienna's phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and sighed. I have to take this. Lucas, can we talk later? About logistics? Yeah, sure. She disappeared back upstairs, voice already shifting into business mode. Lucas finished his coffee and tried not to think about how much the mug probably cost. Dad? Emma was watching him with those two perceptive eyes. Are you going to live here now? Lucas opened his mouth, closed it. I don't know, sweetheart. But you're married. It's complicated. Everything's complicated with grown-ups, Emma said wisely. She hopped off her stool and started clearing plates. I think you should live here. This house has a pool. We're not making life decisions based on pools. Why not? Pools are important. Noah appeared at Lucas's elbow, peanut dangling from one hand. Are you my dad now? The question hit Lucas like a physical blow. He crouched down to Noah's eye level. I'm your mom's husband, which means I'm your stepdad. What's a stepdad? It's like a dad, but different. Different how? Lucas struggled for words. How did you explain this to a 3-year-old? That you were technically family, but actually strangers? That you'd sign papers, but didn't make promises? A stepdad is someone who chooses to be in your life, he said finally. Not because they have to, but because they want to. Noah considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. Do you want to? Yeah, buddy, I do. Okay. Noah held up Peanut. Peanut says you're nice. Tell Peanut thanks. Emma rolled her eyes. You're such a dad. By 9 a.m., Lucas was back at his apartment with Emma, staring at his living room and wondering how his life had become unrecognizable in less than 72 hours. Everything looked exactly the same, his second-hand couch, his overflowing bookshelves, his coffee-stained manuscript pages. But it all felt like it belonged to someone else. His phone buzzed. Victoria. He couldn't avoid this forever. Hey, he answered. You married Sienna. No preamble, just accusation. My sister. You married my baby sister. Ex-sister, Lucas corrected. Technically. Don't be pedantic. What the hell were you thinking? Lucas moved to the window, watching rain start to spatter against the glass. Seattle couldn't go 3 days without rain. She needed help. So you married her. Lucas, that's insane even for you. What's that supposed to mean? Victoria's laugh was sharp. You're the guy who rescues injured birds and donates to every charity that knocks on your door. You can't say no to people. But this is next-level savior complex. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you let Sienna manipulate you into a sham marriage because she couldn't handle her custody battle like an adult. Anger flared hot in Lucas's chest. You don't know anything about what she's going through. I know she's always been dramatic. I know she makes impulsive decisions and expects everyone else to clean up the mess. That's not fair. Fair? Victoria's voice went cold. You want to talk about fair? You dragged our daughter into this. Emma called me last night talking about her new little brother and how she's going to teach him about dinosaurs. You didn't even ask me if this was okay. I don't need your permission to get married. You need my permission to confuse our child. Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose. Emma's fine. She understands the situation. She's 8, Lucas. She doesn't understand anything except that Daddy got married again and suddenly she has a new family. What happens when this blows up? When Sienna gets what she needs from you and decides she's done playing house? It's not. Lucas stopped. Because what could he say? That it wasn't like that? That this was real? It wasn't real. They'd signed a contract with an expiration date. I want to meet with you and Sienna, Victoria said. The 3 of us need to discuss boundaries. Emma's school schedule, holidays, how we're handling this publicly. Publicly? Lucas, you married into one of the wealthiest families in Seattle. You think people aren't going to notice? You think the press won't be all over this? He hadn't thought about the press, hadn't thought about much beyond getting through the custody hearing. Fine, he said tiredly. We'll meet. But Victoria? Sienna's not the villain here. Neither is Marcus, but you picked a side anyway. She hung up. Lucas stood there holding his silent phone, wondering if Victoria was right. If he'd let his need to help override his common sense. If he'd just made everything infinitely more complicated for everyone involved. Emma poked her head around the corner. Was that Mom? Yeah, sweetheart. Is she mad? A little. Emma came over and wrapped her arms around his waist. It's okay, Dad. Mom gets mad about everything. Lucas huffed a laugh. Don't let her hear you say that. I'm not dumb. Emma squeezed tighter. Are we going back to Sienna's house later? I don't know. Maybe. We need to figure out a schedule. I vote for the house with the pool. Noted. They spent the day at the apartment, Emma doing homework while Lucas tried to work on a manuscript and mostly failed. His mind kept circling back to Sienna's kitchen, to Noah's question, to the strange domestic scene that had felt almost normal. His phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Can you come back tonight? We should talk. Lucas stared at the message. The smart thing would be to establish boundaries, maintain separate lives, keep this arrangement strictly business. Instead, he texted back. Yeah, what time? 6? I'll order dinner. You don't have to. I want to, please. Lucas looked around his apartment. Small, familiar, safe. Then he thought about the house on the cliff and the little boy who'd asked if he was staying forever. Okay, he typed. 6. They arrived at Sienna's house to find her in the kitchen, staring blankly at takeout menus spread across the counter like she was trying to decode ancient hieroglyphics. I don't know what people eat, she said without preamble. I mean, I know what I eat. But families? What do families eat? Lucas gently took a menu from her hand. Families eat whatever they want. It's not that complicated. Everything feels complicated. Sienna rubbed her temples. I had 17 meetings today. Fired a board member, negotiated a merger. But ordering dinner for 4 people? Apparently that's beyond my capabilities. How about pizza? Emma suggested. Pizza is always right. Pizza works, Noah agreed, appearing from wherever he'd been playing. Peanut dangled from his grip, looking worse for wear. They ordered pizza. They sat around Sienna's enormous dining table that could seat 12 but held 4. They ate off plates that probably cost more than Lucas's car payment, and somehow it felt normal. Emma told elaborate stories about her day at school. Noah interjected with random observations about elephants. Sienna answered work emails on her phone until Lucas gently confiscated it. They fought over the last slice of pepperoni. This was the weird part, Lucas thought. Not the courtroom or the contract or the marriage license. This, the casual intimacy of shared meals and overlapping conversations. This felt real in a way that terrified him. After dinner, Emma and Noah disappeared to build another pillow fort. Lucas helped Sienna clean up, moving around the kitchen in a careful dance of not quite comfortable domesticity. So, Sienna began, loading plates into a dishwasher that looked like it belonged on a spaceship. We should probably talk about the logistics. Victoria called, Lucas said. She wants to meet, discuss boundaries. Sienna's jaw tightened. Of course she does. She's not wrong to be concerned. This affects Emma too. I know that. Sienna closed the dishwasher with more force than necessary. I'm not trying to disrupt your daughter's life, Lucas. I'm just trying to save my son's. I know, but we need to figure out how this actually works. Where we live, how we split time, what we tell people. What do you want to tell people? Sienna turned to face him, arms crossed. Because I've been getting calls all day from relatives and business associates and reporters asking about my whirlwind romance. Everyone wants to know the story. We stick to what we said in court, Lucas said. We reconnected after my divorce. Got close. Decided to make it official. And when they ask why so fast, we say we didn't want to wait. We say when you know, you know. The words tasted like lies, even though they were technically true. They had known this was necessary, known the stakes, known what they were risking. Sienna studied him. You're good at this. At lying? At making lies sound like truth. Lucas flinched. I'm not criticizing. Sienna's expression softened. I'm just observing. You have this way of smoothing things over, making complicated things seem simple. Nothing about this is simple. No, she agreed. It's really not. They stood in the gleaming kitchen, the dishwasher humming between them, and Lucas felt the weight of every unspoken thing pressing down. I think we should live here, Sienna said abruptly. You and Emma, at least part-time. It'll look more authentic if we're actually cohabiting. Lucas's heart jumped. Sienna, I have plenty of space. Emma could have her own room close to Noah's. You'd have the guest suite, or, she hesitated, we could share the master if that seems more convincing. Separate beds, obviously. I just mean for appearances. Separate beds in the same room. People do it all the time. My grandparents slept separately for 40 years. Your grandparents were actually married. So are we, Sienna shot back. Legally speaking. Lucas leaned against the counter. What about my apartment? Keep it. Use it when you have Emma full-time or when you need space. I'm not trying to take over your life, Lucas. I'm just trying to make this convincing enough that Marcus's lawyers can't tear it apart. She had a point. Living separately while claiming to be newlyweds would raise immediate red flags. What does Noah think about this? Lucas asked. I haven't told him yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Sienna moved to the window, looking out at the dark bay. He's been asking if you're his dad now, if Emma's his sister, if this is permanent. What did you tell him? I said we're figuring it out, which is the truth, isn't it? We're just figuring this out. Lucas joined her at the window. Below, lights from the city reflected off the water, turning everything into a blurred watercolor. Emma asked me the same thing. If we're living here now. And? I told her it's complicated. That seems to be our default answer for everything. They stood side by side, not touching but close enough that Lucas could feel the warmth radiating from her. Sienna smelled like expensive perfume and stress. Okay, he said quietly. We'll do it. Part-time at first. See how it goes. Sienna exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Thank you. Stop thanking me. We're in this together now. Are we? She turned to look at him. Because sometimes I feel like I dragged you into my mess and now you're too polite to leave. I'm not that polite, Lucas said. If I wanted out, I'd be gone. Then why are you staying? It was the same question Noah had asked that morning, the same question Lucas had been asking himself. Because someone has to, he said finally, and I'd rather it be me than nobody. Something flickered across Sienna's face, hurt, maybe, or resignation. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. What do you want me to say? That I'm madly in love with you? We barely know each other, Sienna. I know that, but I meant what I said in court. You're a good mom. Noah deserves to have you in his life. And if me being here helps make that happen, then I'm here. It's not complicated. Everything's complicated, Sienna murmured, echoing Emma's earlier observation. Upstairs, they heard a shriek of laughter followed by a loud thump. Both adults tensed. Should we? Lucas started. Emma's voice carried down. We're okay. Noah just jumped off the fort. Don't jump off the fort, Sienna called back. Too late. Lucas rubbed his face. Our kids are going to kill each other. Our kids, Sienna repeated softly. That sounds strange. Yeah, it does. But not bad, Lucas thought. Just strange. The meeting with Victoria happened on Wednesday at a coffee shop halfway between their respective neighborhoods, neutral territory. Lucas arrived first, ordered coffee he didn't want, and tried to prepare himself for the inevitable conflict. Victoria swept in exactly on time, looking like she'd come straight from court, which she probably had. Corporate lawyer, always impeccably dressed, always in control. She'd been beautiful when they met in college. She was still beautiful now, but looking at her didn't make Lucas feel anything except a vague sense of nostalgia for who they'd both been before life got complicated. Lucas? She sat down across from him. Where's Sienna? Running late, work thing. Victoria's expression said everything about what she thought of that excuse. Of course. They sat in uncomfortable silence. Lucas stirred his coffee. Victoria checked her phone. How's Emma really doing? Victoria asked finally. Not the version where you tell me she's fine, the real version. Lucas considered. She's excited, confused, asking a lot of questions I don't have answers for. About? Whether this is permanent, whether Noah's her brother, whether we're a family now. Victoria's jaw tightened. And what are you telling her? The truth, that we're figuring it out. That's not an answer, Lucas. That's a deflection. It's the only answer I have. Victoria leaned forward. I need to know you're thinking about her in all this. Not just about rescuing Sienna or playing hero or whatever this is. Emma comes first. She always comes first, Lucas said sharply. You know that. I know you have a habit of putting other people's needs before your own, before hers. That's not fair, isn't it? Victoria's eyes flashed. You worked 2 jobs when we were married so I could focus on law school. You moved across the country for my career. You agreed to the divorce without a fight because you thought it would make me happy. What's your point? My point is that you're doing it again, sacrificing yourself for someone else's crisis. And I'm worried Emma's going to get caught in the crossfire. Lucas opened his mouth to argue, but Sienna's arrival cut him off. She looked different than she had at the house. Harder, more polished, every inch the billionaire CEO. Her presence shifted the entire dynamic of the conversation. Victoria. Sienna slid into the seat next to Lucas. Sorry I'm late. You're always late, Victoria said coolly. Some things never change. And you're always judgmental. Guess we're both consistent. Lucas put a hand on Sienna's arm. Can we not do this? Both women looked at him, then at each other. Some wordless sister communication passed between them that Lucas couldn't decipher. Fine, Victoria said. Let's talk logistics. Emma's schedule doesn't change. Lucas has her every other weekend and Wednesday nights, same as always. What about holidays? Sienna asked. What about them? Well, we're family now. Presumably we'd spend some holidays together. Victoria's laugh was razor sharp. You want to spend Thanksgiving together? Christmas? Like one big happy family? I want Noah to have a normal childhood, Sienna said evenly, which includes holiday traditions. Noah has a father who abandoned him for 3 years and only came back when it was convenient. Sienna's voice could have cut glass. Don't talk to me about Marcus like he's father of the year. I'm not defending Marcus. I'm saying that Emma doesn't need to be dragged into your family drama. She's already in it, Lucas interrupted. The moment I married Sienna, Emma became part of this whether we like it or not. Victoria turned to him. And whose fault is that? The accusation hung between them. Mine, Lucas said quietly. It's my fault. I made this choice. And now we all have to live with it. Sienna's hand found his under the table. He didn't pull away. Victoria noticed. Something flickered across her face. Not jealousy exactly, but something close to it. You're really doing this. You're really married to my sister. Yes, Lucas and Sienna said simultaneously. Victoria sat back, studying them with the analytical gaze she usually reserved for hostile witnesses. You know what the crazy thing is? I almost believe you. The way you're sitting, the way you defend each other. If I didn't know better, I'd think this was real. It is real, Sienna said. Just not in the way you mean. Then how is it? Lucas squeezed Sienna's hand. It's real enough. They hammered out the details over the next hour. Emma's schedule would stay the same for now, with the understanding that she could spend more time at Sienna's house if she wanted. Holidays would be negotiated on a case-by-case basis. Victoria would meet Noah before making any decisions about combining family events. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As they stood to leave, Victoria caught Lucas's arm. Be careful, she said quietly. Sienna's always been good at getting what she wants. Just make sure you know what you want too. Lucas looked across the coffee shop at Sienna, who was checking her phone with the focused intensity of someone managing a corporate empire. Then he thought about Noah asking if he was staying forever. I'm figuring it out, he said. That's what worries me. That night, Lucas and Emma moved into Sienna's house with 2 suitcases and a box of Emma's essential belongings, which mostly consisted of dinosaur books and stuffed animals. Sienna had prepared a room for Emma that made Lucas's entire apartment look like a closet. King-size bed, reading nook, attached bathroom, enough space for a small library. Emma stood in the doorway, eyes wide. This is mine? All yours, Sienna confirmed. If you want to change anything, paint colors, furniture, whatever, just let me know. Can I paint dinosaurs on the walls? Sure, why not? Emma threw her arms around Sienna's waist. Thank you. Sienna looked startled, then softened, awkwardly patting Emma's back. You're welcome, sweetheart. Lucas got the guest suite, which was essentially a luxury hotel room with a California king bed and furniture that looked like it cost more than his car. Sienna's master bedroom was down the hall, close enough to be accessible, far enough to maintain the illusion of privacy. They ordered Chinese food. They helped Noah and Emma hang glow-in-the-dark stars on Emma's ceiling. They negotiated bedtime with the diplomatic skill of UN peacekeepers. And then, finally, the house was quiet. Lucas found Sienna on the deck again, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the dark water. You okay? He asked. Just thinking. About? About how weird this is. She glanced at him. You moved in today. You're sleeping down the hall. Emma's room is next to Noah's. From the outside, we look like a normal family. We're not normal. No, but we're something. Sienna pulled the blanket tighter. Marcus's lawyer called today. They're filing a motion to modify the custody arrangement, claiming our marriage is fraudulent. Lucas's stomach dropped. Can they do that? They can try. Veronica says it's a long shot. We won the initial hearing, and unless they have concrete proof of fraud, a judge probably won't overturn it. But it means we need to be more careful, more convincing. More married. Yeah. They stood in silence, the weight of that statement settling over them. Lucas? Sienna's voice was small. What if this doesn't work? What if they find something, or someone talks, or then we deal with it, Lucas said firmly. Together. That's what partners do. Well, we're not really partners, though. We're whatever we need to be, Lucas interrupted. For Noah, for Emma, for this to work. Sienna turned to face him fully. You're a good person, you know that? I'm a person who made a promise. There's a difference. Is there? Lucas didn't have an answer for that. Inside, someone's phone buzzed. Footsteps padded across hardwood. Noah's small voice called out, Mama? Sienna was already moving. I'm here, baby. Lucas followed her inside to find Noah standing at the top of the stairs, clutching Peanut, eyes heavy with sleep. Bad dream? Sienna asked, scooping him up. Noah nodded against her shoulder. Want to tell me about it? The scary man came back. Sienna's entire body tensed. Lucas knew without asking that Noah meant Marcus. He's not coming back, sweetheart, Sienna murmured. I promise. But what if he does? Then Lucas and I will keep you safe. Right, Lucas? Noah looked at Lucas with those enormous gray eyes. You'll keep me safe? Lucas thought about contracts and courtrooms and the very real possibility that this could all fall apart. Then he thought about the little boy in his arms who just wanted to feel protected. Yeah, buddy, he said. I will. Noah seemed satisfied with this. He yawned, revealing tiny teeth. Can I sleep in your bed, Mama? Of course. Sienna carried Noah toward her room, then paused. Lucas, would you mind helping me get him settled? He sleeps better with more people around. It was a test, Lucas realized. Not of him, but of them. Of whether they could navigate this strange intimacy without making it weird. Sure, he said. They ended up in Sienna's massive bedroom, all white furniture and soft lighting and a bed that could sleep 6. Noah curled up in the middle, peanut tucked under his chin. Sienna lay on one side, Lucas on the other. Tell the story, Noah mumbled, already half asleep. Sienna glanced at Lucas. He likes stories before bed. I'm not good at stories. Just make something up. So Lucas did. He told a rambling tale about a brave elephant named Peanut who went on adventures with his friend Emma, the dinosaur expert. He made up absurd plot points about underwater kingdoms and cookie-eating dragons. Sienna added details about magical elephants who could fly. Within 10 minutes, Noah was out cold. Within 20, Sienna's eyes were drifting shut too. Lucas lay there in the darkness, listening to them breathe, and wondered how he'd ended up here. In a stranger's bed, telling bedtime stories to a child who wasn't his, married to a woman he barely knew. This was insane. This was working. This was terrifying. Sienna's hand found his across Noah's sleeping form. She didn't say anything, just held on like he was an anchor in a storm. Lucas held back. And for tonight, that was enough. Lucas woke up with a small foot in his ribs and sunlight burning through his eyelids. For a disoriented moment, he thought he was back in his apartment, that Emma had crawled into bed after a nightmare. Then he registered the expensive sheets, the unfamiliar ceiling, and the warm weight of another person on his other side. Sienna. She was still asleep, one arm draped protectively over Noah, dark hair spilling across the pillow. In sleep, her face lost that careful control she always wore. She looked younger, softer, almost vulnerable. Lucas carefully extracted himself from the bed, trying not to wake anyone. Noah stirred, mumbling something about Peanut, but didn't open his eyes. Sienna's breathing stayed deep and even. He found Emma in the kitchen, already dressed for school, eating cereal while watching something on her iPad. Morning, Dad. She didn't look up. You slept in Sienna's room. It wasn't a question. Noah had a nightmare, Lucas explained, pouring coffee from a pot that had somehow already been made. We were helping him sleep. Uh-huh. Emma's tone was pure preteen skepticism. That's what married people do, right? Sleep together? Emma, I'm just saying, if you're going to pretend to be married, you should probably actually share a room. People notice stuff like that. Lucas stared at his 8-year-old daughter. When did you get so observant? I've always been observant. You just noticed. She grinned, echoing her words from days ago. Don't worry, I won't tell Mom. But you should probably figure out the sleeping arrangements before someone else asks about it. She had a point. Of course she had a point. Sienna appeared 20 minutes later, looking harried and half awake, with Noah attached to her leg like a barnacle. He won't let go, she said helplessly. I tried to put him down so I could get dressed, but he's convinced I'm going to disappear. Mama's not leaving, Noah insisted, voice muffled against her pants. I'm just going upstairs to change clothes, baby. No! Lucas crouched down. Hey, Noah, how about you help me make pancakes while your mom gets ready? Emma says you're really good at mixing. Noah peered at him suspiciously. I am good at mixing. Then I definitely need your help. Emma's terrible at it. I am not, Emma protested, playing along. R2. Am not, Noah giggled despite himself. His grip on Sienna loosened fractionally. Okay, I'll help. Sienna mouthed thank you and fled upstairs before Noah could change his mind. They made pancakes, or rather, Lucas made pancakes while Noah helped by adding approximately a pound of chocolate chips to the batter, and Emma provided running commentary on the structural integrity of their flipping technique. You're getting batter on the ceiling, Emma observed. That's Noah's artistic vision. I'm an artist, Noah announced proudly. By the time Sienna came back down, dressed for whatever high-powered business meeting was surely on her schedule, the kitchen looked like a disaster zone, but the kids were laughing. I see we're redecorating, Sienna said dryly, eyeing the batter on the backsplash. It's abstract expressionism, Lucas said. It's a health code violation. That too. She poured coffee and leaned against the counter, watching them with an unreadable expression. Lucas caught her eye, and something passed between them, not quite understanding, but maybe the beginning of it. A recognition that they were building something here, even if neither of them knew exactly what. The moment shattered when Sienna's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her entire demeanor shifted. "I have to take this." She disappeared into her home office. Through the glass doors, Lucas could see her pacing, one hand gesturing emphatically while she talked. "She works a lot," Noah said quietly, pushing chocolate chips around his plate. "Yeah," Lucas agreed. "She does." "My old dad never worked. He just went away." The statement was delivered with the matter-of-fact honesty of a 3-year-old who didn't understand the weight of his own words. Lucas's chest tightened. "Well, your mom works hard because she loves you," he said carefully. "Everything she does is to make sure you have a good life." "I know." Noah took a bite of pancake. "That's why I don't tell her when I'm sad. She gets the worry face." Emma looked up from her iPad. "What's the worry face?" "When her eyebrows do this." Noah demonstrated, scrunching his forehead, and she stopped smiling. Lucas exchanged a glance with Emma. His daughter's expression said what he was thinking. This kid was way too perceptive for 3 years old. "You know what?" Lucas said. "It's okay to tell your mom when you're sad. That's what moms are for." "But then she worries." "She's going to worry anyway. That's what parents do. We worry because we care." Noah considered this with the seriousness of a philosopher. "Do you worry about Emma?" "All the time." "Even when she's not sad?" "Especially then." Emma rolled her eyes. "Dad worries about everything. Last week he worried that I wasn't eating enough vegetables. I'm fine." "Vegetables are important." "See? Worried." Noah giggled. The sound was becoming more frequent, Lucas noticed, less guarded, like he was starting to believe he could relax here. The morning dissolved into the controlled chaos of getting kids ready for school. Emma needed her permission slip signed. Noah couldn't find his other shoe. Sienna emerged from her office long enough to kiss Noah goodbye and promised she'd be home for dinner, a promise Lucas suspected she made every day and broke half the time. "I have meetings until 4, she told Lucas quietly, while the kids gathered backpacks. "Can you handle pickup?" "Yeah, I've got it." "Thank you, She hesitated. "I'm sorry I'm dumping all this on you." "You're not dumping anything. This is what we signed up for." "Still." She touched his arm briefly, a ghost of contact. "I appreciate it." Then she was gone, heels clicking against hardwood, already back on her phone before she reached her car. Lucas drove Emma to school in his beat-up Honda, which looked absurdly out of place in the circular driveway of Sienna's cliffside mansion. Emma noticed. "We look like the help," she observed. "We kind of are the help." "Dad, you married her. You're not the help." "Then what am I?" Emma thought about it. "You're the person who makes sure everything doesn't fall apart. That's different." Out of the mouths of babes, Lucas thought. He dropped Emma at her school, a public elementary with playground equipment that had seen better days, and then drove across town to Noah's preschool. The difference was staggering. Noah's school occupied a converted Victorian mansion with a playground that looked like it belonged in a theme park. The other parents looked like they'd stepped out of a yacht club catalog. Lucas, in his jeans and university sweatshirt, felt every inch the outsider. "You must be Mr. Hale," the director said warmly, meeting him at the door. "We're so glad to finally meet you. Sienna's mentioned you several times." "She has?" Lucas tried to hide his surprise. "Oh, yes. She's been very excited about the marriage. Such a whirlwind romance." The way she said it suggested she didn't entirely believe it, but was too polite to say so. "Right," Lucas said. "Whirlwind. That's definitely the word." Noah appeared, clutching Peanut, looking uncertain. "Ready to go, buddy?" Lucas asked. Noah nodded, but didn't move. "He's been a bit clingy today," the director said quietly. "Separation anxiety, probably related to the custody changes. Completely normal. It should pass." Should, Lucas thought, not will. Should. Noah finally took his hand, small fingers wrapping around Lucas's larger ones with surprising strength. They walked to the car together, Noah chattering about his day, something about finger painting and a turtle named Steve. "Lucas," Noah said as they drove toward home, "are you going to leave like my other dad?" The The question hit Lucas like a punch to the gut. He pulled over, not trusting himself to drive and have this conversation simultaneously. Noah, look at me. The little boy turned in his car seat, eyes enormous. I'm not going anywhere, Lucas said firmly. Your mom and I are together, and we're both here for you, okay? But what if you change your mind? I won't. How do you know? Because I signed a contract, Lucas thought. Because your mom needed help and I couldn't say no. Because walking away now would make me the kind of person I never want to be. But what he said was, because I promise, and I don't break my promises. Noah studied him with the intensity of someone trying to detect lies. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded and turned back to the window. Okay, I believe you. The simple faith in those words terrified Lucas more than anything that had happened in the past week. They spent the afternoon at the house. Noah wanted to show Lucas his entire toy collection, which took approximately 2 hours and involved elaborate explanations of each stuffed animal's personality and backstory. Peanut, apparently, had a complicated romantic history with a giraffe named Steve Jr. Is Steve Jr. related to the turtle Steve from school? Lucas asked. No, that's a different Steve, obviously. Obviously. Lucas's phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Meeting running late. Won't make dinner. I'm sorry. He stared at the message, understanding exactly what Noah had meant about the worry face. He could practically see Sienna's guilt through the screen. He texted back, We've got it covered. Don't stress. Then he ordered pizza, supervised homework that consisted mostly of coloring, and let Noah watch exactly one episode of his favorite cartoon before bath time. Bedtime was an adventure. Noah had opinions about pajamas, the temperature of the bath water, which toothbrush was acceptable, and the precise angle at which Peanut needed to be positioned for optimal sleeping. You're very particular, Lucas observed. Mama says I have standards. Does she now? They ended up in the pillow fort Emma and Noah had built, because apparently Noah couldn't sleep in an actual bed when the fort was available. Lucas lay on the floor, his back protesting against hardwood, while Noah curled up surrounded by cushions and stuffed animals. Tell a story, Noah demanded. You're very bossy for someone who needs my help falling asleep. Mama says bossy means I know what I want. Your mama says a lot of things. But Lucas told the story anyway. Another installment in the adventures of Peanut and Emma, the dinosaur expert, this time involving a quest for the world's best cookies. He was midway through describing a cookie mountain when Noah interrupted. Lucas? Yeah, buddy. Do you love my mama? Lucas froze. Of all the questions he'd been prepared for, that wasn't one of them. Why do you ask? Because Emma's mama and Dada don't love each other anymore. That's why Emma has 2 houses. But you live here now, so you must love mama, right? The logic was unassailable and completely wrong. Your mama and I care about each other a lot, Lucas said carefully, and we both love you. That's what matters. But do you love her like in movies, like kissing and stuff? It's complicated, Noah. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to answer. Lucas couldn't argue with that. How about this? He said. Your mama and I are partners. We're a team. We take care of each other and we take care of you. Love looks different for different people, but that doesn't make it less real. Noah absorbed this, processing with that unsettling intelligence. So you do love her. Just different. Sure, Lucas said, surrendering. Different. Okay. Noah yawned, satisfied with this answer in a way Lucas definitely wasn't. Finish the story. By the time Lucas reached the Cookie Mountain summit, Noah was asleep. Lucas carefully extricated himself from the fort and found his phone full of messages. Victoria. Emma says you're playing house at Sienna's mansion. This is getting out of hand. His brother. Dude, what the hell? You got married and didn't tell me? A number he didn't recognize. Mr. Bennett, this is Alexis Ford from Seattle Weekly. We're doing a feature on whirlwind romances and heard about your recent marriage to Sienna Hale. Would you be available for an interview? And finally, Sienna. On my way home, thank you for today, for everything. Lucas responded to exactly one message, Sienna's. Anytime, he typed. Then, because he was apparently a masochist, Noah asked if I love you. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, what did you tell him? That it's complicated. That's our answer for everything. Yeah. The dots appeared and disappeared several more times before she finally sent, "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here." Lucas stared at the message, trying to parse what it meant. Gratitude? Obligation? Something else? He was still staring when he heard her car in the driveway. Sienna looked exhausted when she walked in, carrying her heels in one hand and her briefcase in the other. Her hair had escaped its twist. Her makeup was smudged. She looked human, Lucas thought. Not like the polished billionaire or the desperate woman who'd shown up in the rain, just human. "Hey," she said quietly. "Is he asleep?" "In the fort. Has opinions about everything. He gets that from me." She dropped her stuff on the counter and slumped against it. "I'm sorry I missed dinner. Again. I know I keep saying that, but Sienna, it's fine." "It's not fine. This is exactly what Marcus's lawyers said about me, that I'm never around, that I prioritize work over Noah, that I'm—" "One bad day doesn't make you a bad mother," Lucas interrupted. "You had important meetings. The world didn't end. Noah's fine." "He asked you if you loved me." "He did." "What did you really tell him?" Lucas moved closer, not quite touching, but close enough to matter. "I told him we're a team, that we take care of each other, that love looks different for different people." "That's very diplomatic. I'm getting good at diplomatic." Sienna laughed, tired but genuine. "You really are." She rubbed her face. "Want to know the funny thing? Today, in the middle of a board meeting, I realized I was thinking about getting home to you and the kids. Not just Noah, all three of you. Like you were a unit, a family." "We kind of are," Lucas said, accidentally. "Accidentally," she echoed. "Is that what we're calling this?" "What would you call it?" She looked at him, and something shifted in her expression. "I don't know anymore." They stood in her expensive kitchen, exhaustion radiating from both of them, and Lucas felt the ground shift beneath his feet. This was supposed to be temporary, transactional, a means to an end. But standing here with Sienna, talking about their day like actual partners, it felt dangerous. It felt real. "I should let you sleep," Lucas said, stepping back. "You look dead on your feet." "Charming. I'm a catch. What can I say?" Sienna smiled despite herself. Then, impulsively, she hugged him, quick and tight and over, before Lucas could fully process it. "Thank you," she whispered. "For today. For all of it." Then she was gone, heading upstairs, leaving Lucas alone in the kitchen, wondering what the hell he'd gotten himself into. The next 3 weeks developed a rhythm that felt dangerously close to normal. Lucas and Emma moved between his apartment and Sienna's house, spending more nights at the mansion than not. Emma and Noah became inseparable, building elaborate games that involved dinosaurs, elephants, and increasingly complex backstories. Sienna worked brutal hours, but made it home for dinner at least half the time. They looked from the outside like a family, but the cracks were starting to show. Marcus's lawyers filed motion after motion, each one questioning the legitimacy of the marriage. They subpoenaed financial records, interviewed neighbors, dug through social media. Veronica assured them it was all standard harassment, but Lucas could see it wearing on Sienna. She started sleeping less, working more. The worry face Noah had described became a permanent fixture. "You need to slow down," Lucas told her one night, finding her still at her laptop at 2 a.m. "I can't. If I slow down, everything falls apart." "If you don't slow down, you'll fall apart." "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was running on fumes and sheer stubbornness. 3 days later, it caught up with her. Lucas got the call at noon, Sienna's assistant, voice tight with controlled panic. "Mr. Bennett? Miss Hale collapsed during a meeting. She's at Northwest Hospital. She's okay, but—" Lucas didn't hear the rest. He was already moving. He called Victoria to take Emma from school, arranged for Noah's preschool to keep him late, and drove to the hospital with his heart in his throat. He found Sienna in a private room, hooked up to an IV, looking small and pale against white sheets. "Before you say anything," she began, "I'm fine. Just dehydration and exhaustion. They're keeping me overnight for observation, but—" "You collapsed," Lucas said flatly. "I got dizzy." "You collapsed in front of your entire board because you're working yourself into the ground." Sienna's jaw set stubbornly. "I have a company to run, and a son who needs you alive." Lucas's voice came out sharper than he intended. He took a breath, tried again. "Sienna, You can't keep doing this. Something has to give. I don't have the luxury of giving, she shot back. Marcus is watching everything. If I show any weakness, any sign that I can't handle everything, he'll use it against me. The successful businesswoman narrative only works if I'm actually successful. So you're going to work yourself to death to prove a point? I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep my son. The words hung between them, raw and desperate. Lucas sank into the chair beside her bed. You already kept your son. We won the custody hearing. Winning once isn't enough. Don't you get it? Sienna's voice cracked. I have to keep winning. Every day, every meeting, every decision. Because the moment I slip, the moment I'm anything less than perfect, they'll take him away. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. She turned her head away, staring at the wall. You don't understand what it's like, being a woman in my position, having people question every choice, every priority. They called me neglectful for working too much. But if I didn't work, if I relied on inheritance or a husband's money, they'd call me spoiled and unfit. I can't win, Lucas. I can only keep fighting. Lucas reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Then stop fighting alone, he said quietly. That's why I'm here, remember? We're supposed to be a team. You're here because I manipulated you into marrying me. I'm here because I chose to be, and I'm choosing to stay. But Sienna, he squeezed her fingers, I can't help you if you won't let me. She finally looked at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. I don't know how to let people help. I've been doing everything myself for so long. Then learn, starting now. Lucas pulled out his phone. I'm calling Veronica. We're delegating some of your company responsibilities until you're back on your feet. And you're taking 3 days off. I can't. You can. You will. Because if you end up back in this hospital, Noah's going to be terrified, and Emma's going to ask me why I let you make yourself sick. And I won't have a good answer. Sienna stared at him for a long moment. Then incredibly, she laughed, a weak, watery sound. When did you get so bossy? Learn from the best. You and Noah both. She smiled despite herself. 3 days. 3 days minimum. A week would be better. Don't push your luck, Lucas grinned. Too late. I married you, didn't I? The joke landed somewhere tender. Sienna's expression shifted, softened. Yeah, she said quietly. You did. They stayed like that, hands linked, until the nurse came in to check vitals. Lucas called Veronica, arranged emergency childcare through Sienna's network, and fielded approximately 17 calls from board members who were clearly panicking about their CEO's collapse. By the time visiting hours ended, Sienna was asleep, a real sleep, not the fitful half-consciousness she usually managed. Lucas stood to leave, but her hand tightened on his. Stay, she murmured without opening her eyes. Please. So he did. He pulled the uncomfortable hospital chair as close to the bed as possible and settled in for a long night. Sienna's breathing evened out. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm. Outside, Seattle's eternal rain tapped against the window. And Lucas sat there, holding the hand of a woman he'd married for all the wrong reasons, and wondered when everything had gotten so complicated. His phone buzzed. Emma. Is Sienna okay? She texted. She will be, Lucas typed back. Good. Noah's really worried. Tell her we love her. Lucas stared at the message. We love her. Not tell her we hope she feels better, or we're thinking of her. We love her. When had that happened? He looked at Sienna, pale and exhausted, but finally resting, and felt something shift in his chest. Oh no, he thought, oh no. But he texted Emma back, I will, and meant it. Sienna came home from the hospital on Thursday afternoon, and the house felt different. Quieter, maybe, or just more careful. Noah had been unusually subdued since learning his mother was sick, clinging to her with the fierce desperation of a child who'd already lost one parent and couldn't bear to lose another. Emma, in her own way, was just as worried. She'd baked cookies, slightly burned, overly sweet, and arranged them on a plate with the precision of a surgeon. They're get-well cookies, she announced when Sienna walked through the door. I used the recipe from the internet. Some of them exploded, but the flat ones taste okay. Sienna's eyes went suspiciously bright. They're perfect. They're really not, but you have to eat one anyway because I worked hard. So Sienna ate a cookie that was probably 60% sugar and told Emma it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Emma beamed. Noah finally released his death grip on Sienna's leg, and Lucas watched from the kitchen doorway, his chest doing something complicated and painful. The next 3 days passed in a strange domestic bubble. Sienna, under strict orders from both Lucas and her doctor, actually took time off. She worked from the couch instead of her office, answering emails in sweatpants while Noah played with blocks at her feet. She let Lucas cook dinner without protest. She read bedtime stories without checking her phone every 30 seconds. It should have felt forced. Instead, it felt natural. On Saturday morning, Lucas found her on the deck with her coffee, staring at the water like she was trying to memorize it. "You're supposed to be resting," he said. "This is resting. I'm sitting." "You're sitting and thinking about work." "How do you know?" "You get a face, the work face, different from the worry face." Sienna laughed softly. "Noah told you about the worry face, didn't he? He's very observant." "He gets that from me too." She took a sip of coffee. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "Why are you really doing this? And don't say it's because I asked. There has to be more to it than that." Lucas joined her at the railing, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "You want the real answer?" "Please." He was quiet for a moment, watching a ferry cut across the gray water. "After my divorce, I felt like I'd failed. At marriage, at being a partner, at making Victoria happy. I spent a year convinced I was fundamentally broken, that something in me was defective because I couldn't make it work." Sienna listened without interrupting. "Then you showed up," Lucas continued, "and you needed help. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe I could actually do something that mattered. Maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I just needed to find the right reason to try. That's a lot of pressure to put on a fake marriage. Who said it was fake?" The words hung between them, sharp and dangerous. Sienna turned to look at him. "Lucas, I know what the contract says," he interrupted. "I know this is supposed to be temporary, but Sienna, nothing about this feels temporary anymore. Not to me." "You don't mean that." "Don't tell me what I mean." Sienna set her coffee down with shaking hands. "You barely know me. I know you read to Noah every night, even when you're exhausted. I know you remember how Emma takes her eggs. I know you work yourself sick trying to prove you're enough when you've always been enough." Lucas's voice roughened. "I know that when you smile, really smile, not the corporate version, it changes your whole face. And I know that somewhere along the way this stopped being about the custody hearing and started being about us." "There is no us," Sienna said, but her voice wavered. "This is a contract, a transaction." "Then why did you ask me to stay at the hospital? Why do you reach for my hand when you're stressed? Why do you look at me like—" He stopped, frustrated. "Like it matters." "Because it does matter." The admission burst out of her. "You matter, but that doesn't change what this is." "What is it then? Tell me." Sienna's eyes were bright with something that looked like panic. "It's a mistake. This whole thing, it was supposed to be simple. You help me keep Noah, we maintain appearances for a year, and then we both walk away. Clean, easy." "Nothing about this is clean or easy." "Exactly." She pushed away from the railing, pacing. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Feelings, complications, people getting hurt." "Maybe people are supposed to get hurt sometimes," Lucas said quietly. "Maybe that's how you know it's real." Sienna stopped pacing. "I can't do real, Lucas. I don't know how. Every relationship I've ever had has fallen apart. My parents, Marcus, even Victoria. Everyone leaves eventually. I can't—" Her voice broke. "I can't give you what you're looking for." "I'm not looking for anything except honesty. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me it's just gratitude or convenience or whatever you need it to be, and I'll back off. But don't lie to yourself." "It doesn't matter what I feel. It's the only thing that matters." They stared at each other across the deck, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. Then Noah's voice shattered the moment. "Mama! Lucas! Emma says we can make a blanket fort that goes to the moon." Sienna wiped her eyes quickly. "That sounds structurally unsound." "That's what I said." Noah appeared at the door, dragging Peanut. "But Emma says she can do physics." "She's 8, Lucas said. She's very smart for 8. The conversation was over. They both knew it. Sienna disappeared inside to supervise the moon fort, leaving Lucas alone on the deck with too many feelings and nowhere to put them. His phone buzzed. Veronica. Lucas, we have a problem. Of course they did. He found Sienna in her office an hour later, video call with Veronica pulled up on her laptop. Her expression was carefully blank, the one she used when she was terrified but couldn't show it. What happened? Lucas asked. Veronica's face on screen was grim. Marcus's legal team found something, or they think they did. They're filing an emergency motion claiming they have evidence the marriage is fraudulent. Lucas's stomach dropped. What evidence? They won't say yet, but they've requested another hearing for next Friday. Judge Brennan granted it. Can they do that? Sienna's voice was eerily calm. We already won custody. They can if they can prove fraud, which means we need to figure out what they have and how to counter it. Veronica leaned forward. I need you two to think. Hard. Is there anything that could be used against you? Social media posts, text messages, witnesses who might say the wrong thing? Lucas and Sienna looked at each other. The contract, Lucas said quietly. Sienna's face went white. No, there's no way they could have. What contract? Veronica's voice sharpened. Nothing, Sienna said quickly. Just the prenup. Sienna. Veronica's tone could cut glass. What contract? The silence stretched too long. We signed a marriage contract, Lucas said finally, before the wedding. It outlined the terms of the arrangement, duration, compensation, dissolution procedures. Veronica closed her eyes. Please tell me you destroyed it. It's in my safe, Sienna said. No one has access to my safe except… She stopped. Oh no. Who, Sienna? My former assistant, Rebecca. She had the combination for emergencies, but she quit 2 weeks ago. She was angry about… Sienna's voice went hollow. She said I was impossible to work for, that I prioritized everything over people. And she had access to your safe, Veronica said flatly, until I changed the combination last week, which means she had a 2-week window to photograph anything inside it. Veronica swore, which Lucas had never heard her do. This is bad. If they have that contract, if they can prove you planned this marriage specifically for the custody hearing, we're done, Sienna finished. They'll overturn the custody arrangement. Marcus gets Noah. The words landed like a death sentence. Lucas felt the room tilt. They'd been so careful, so convincing. They'd built a life together, created a family, and it was all going to crumble because of a piece of paper he'd forgotten about. What do we do? He asked. Veronica was quiet for a long moment. We fight. We argue that the contract doesn't prove fraud, that plenty of couples have prenups and agreements. We emphasize that regardless of how the marriage started, you've built a genuine partnership. We tell the truth, Lucas interrupted. Both women stared at him. The real truth, he continued, not the sanitized version. We tell the judge exactly what happened, that Sienna needed help, that I agreed to help her, and that somewhere along the way, this became real. Lucas, that's… Veronica began. The only option, he finished, because any other story is going to fall apart the moment they put that contract in front of the judge. But the truth? The truth is that we're a family now. That might not be how we started, but it's what we became. Sienna was looking at him like he'd lost his mind. You can't say that in court. I'd be admitting that I married you to help you keep your son, which is true, and that I'm still here because I want to be, which is also true. Lucas turned to Veronica. Can we make that work? Veronica's expression was complicated. It's risky, very risky, but it might be our best shot. If we control the narrative, if we own the unconventional start and emphasize the genuine relationship that developed, she nodded slowly. It could work. Maybe. Maybe isn't good enough, Sienna said. I can't risk Noah on maybe. You're already risking him, Lucas pointed out. They have the contract. We can either scramble to explain it away, or we own it. Make it part of our story instead of our dirty secret. Sienna stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Her shoulders were rigid with tension. This is my fault. All of it. I asked you to do this. I kept that contract instead of destroying it. Stop, Lucas crossed to her. We both signed that contract. We both made this choice. And we're both going to face the consequences together. I can't let you. You can't stop me. He caught her hand, making her look at him. Sienna, I meant what I said earlier. This isn't temporary for me anymore. So I'm going to stand up in that courtroom and tell the truth, and whatever happens, happens. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why? Why would you do that? Because I love you, Lucas thought. But he wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. Not like this. Because it's the right thing to do, he said instead. Veronica cleared her throat from the laptop. If we're doing this, we need to prepare. Intensively. I want you both in my office Monday morning. We're going to go over every detail, every question they might ask, every angle they might take. And Lucas? Yeah? You better be sure about this, because once you admit this in court, there's no taking it back. Lucas looked at Sienna, at her tear-stained face and terrified eyes, and the desperate hope she was trying so hard to hide. I'm sure, he said. The next few days were brutal. Veronica drilled them relentlessly, playing devil's advocate, asking invasive questions, poking holes in their story until Lucas felt raw and exposed. Sienna withdrew into herself, working twice as hard as if she could somehow earn back the control she'd lost. Emma and Noah noticed the tension. They got quieter, more careful, like they were trying not to be the thing that broke everything. Wednesday night, Lucas found Emma sitting on her bed, staring at her dinosaur books without reading them. Hey, sweetheart, he said softly. You okay? Are you and Sienna getting divorced? The question hit him like a fist. What? No, why would you think that? Mom said it might happen. She said marriages that start fast end fast, and that you'd probably realize you made a mistake. Lucas sat beside her, anger at Victoria warring with understanding. She was protecting Emma the only way she knew how, by preparing her for disappointment. Listen to me, he said. I don't know what's going to happen with the court stuff. I don't know if we're going to win. But Emma, I didn't make a mistake. Marrying Sienna, it was the best decision I've made in a long time. Really? Really? He pulled her close. You know what I learned from my divorce with your mom? That sometimes love isn't enough. But this time I'm choosing to stay. I'm choosing this family. You, Noah, Sienna, all of it. Emma was quiet for a moment. I like it here, she said finally. I like having Noah as a brother. I like how Sienna remembers my favorite cereal. I like that we're all together. Me too, baby. So we're going to fight to keep it? Lucas thought about the hearing, about the contract, about every way this could go wrong. Yeah, he said. We're going to fight. Emma nodded, satisfied. Then, Dad? Yeah? I think you do love Sienna. You just haven't figured it out yet. Lucas stared at his too perceptive daughter. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, she said, grinning. You just noticed. That night, Lucas found Sienna in Noah's room, watching him sleep with an expression that broke his heart. He asked me today if the bad man was going to take him away, she whispered. He's 3 years old, and he's already learned to be afraid. Lucas stood beside her. We're not going to let that happen. You can't promise that. Watch me. Sienna finally looked at him. Why are you so calm about this? We could lose everything on Friday. Because panicking won't change anything. And because he hesitated, then decided to hell with it. I trust us. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Together, she echoed. I'm not used to together. I know, but you're learning. She leaned against him just slightly, and Lucas wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They stood like that, watching Noah sleep, and for a moment the fear receded. Lucas? Her voice was barely audible. Yeah? If we lose, if they take Noah, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Well, don't stay out of obligation. Don't stay because you feel sorry for me or because you made a promise. If this falls apart, I need you to walk away. For Emma's sake, if not your own. Lucas's arm tightened around her. I'm not walking away. Lucas, Sienna, listen to me. I didn't marry you because I'm a saint or because I have a savior complex or whatever Victoria thinks. I married you because when you showed up at my door, desperate and terrified, you trusted me enough to ask for help. And then I got to know you, really know you, and I realized you're the strongest, most stubborn, most infuriating person I've ever met." She let out a watery laugh. "And somewhere in there," Lucas continued, "I started to fall in love with you." Sienna went very still. "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true." "Because it makes this harder. Because if I let myself believe you, and then you leave anyway, I'm not leaving." He turned her to face him. "I know you've been left before. I know Marcus abandoned you and your parents let you down and Victoria chose her career over being your sister. But Sienna, I'm not them. I'm here. I'm staying. And I need you to believe that." Tears streamed down her face. "I want to. I'm just so scared." "Of losing Noah?" "Of losing you." The admission seemed to surprise her as much as it surprised him. Lucas cupped her face in his hands, thumbs wiping away tears. "You're not going to lose me. Not in the courtroom, not after, not ever. Okay?" "Okay," she whispered. And then finally, he kissed her. It wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was soft and careful and tasted like salt from her tears. It was a promise and a question and an answer all at once. When they broke apart, Sienna was looking at him with something like wonder. "That was long overdue," Lucas finished. She laughed, pressing her forehead to his. "Yeah, it really was. They stood there in Noah's doorway, wrapped around each other, and for the first time since the hospital, Sienna looked like she could breathe. Friday arrived with the inevitability of a storm. They dressed carefully, Lucas in a suit that Sienna had bought him, Sienna in armor disguised as a dress. Emma and Noah stayed with Victoria, who had agreed to watch both kids despite her reservations. "Good luck," Victoria had said when she picked them up. She'd looked at Lucas for a long moment. "I hope you know what you're doing." "Me too," Lucas had replied honestly. The courtroom was packed. Marcus sat with his legal team, looking confident. Bethany beside him, perfectly styled and smug. Their lawyers had that shark-like quality of people who smelled blood in the water. Judge Brennan called the hearing to order. Davidson stood first, practically gleeful as he presented the contract. "Your Honor, this document proves beyond doubt that Ms. Hale and Mr. Bennett entered into a marriage of convenience specifically to deceive this court. The contract explicitly states the marriage is temporary, outlines compensation for Mr. Bennett's participation, and includes a dissolution timeline that coincides with the end of the custody review period." He read passages aloud, each word landing like a blow. The gallery murmured. Marcus smiled. "This is fraud, Your Honor," Davidson concluded. "Hale orchestrated this entire charade to manipulate the court's decision. I'm requesting immediate modification of the custody arrangement and sanctions for both parties." Judge Brennan's expression was unreadable. "Ms. Chen, I assume you have a response?" Veronica stood. "Your Honor, may I call Mr. Bennett to testify?" Lucas's heart hammered as he took the stand. He caught Sienna's eye. She looked terrified, but gave him a small nod. Veronica approached. "Mr. Bennett, is this contract authentic?" "Yes." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. "And did you sign it willingly?" "Yes." "Can you explain to the court why you signed a contract to marry Ms. Hale?" Lucas took a breath. This was it. The truth, messy and complicated and real. "Because she asked me to," he said. "Sienna came to me in the middle of the night, desperate to keep her son, and asked me to help. The contract was her lawyer's idea, a way to protect both of us legally. I signed it because I wanted to help someone who needed it." "So you're admitting this marriage was transactional?" Davidson interrupted. "I'm admitting it started that way," Lucas said. "But it didn't stay that way." Judge Brennan leaned forward. "Explain that, Mr. Bennett." Lucas looked at Sienna. "When I married Sienna, I barely knew her. She was my ex-wife's sister, someone I'd seen at family events but never really talked to. The contract made sense because we were essentially strangers entering a business arrangement." "And now?" Veronica prompted. "Now she's my wife, not on paper, not because of a contract, but because over the past 2 months we've built a life together. We wake up in the same house. We eat breakfast as a family. We argue about who's doing the dishes and whose turn it is to read bedtime stories. His voice roughened. "We became real somewhere along the way." "That's very convenient testimony," Davidson said sarcastically. It's the truth, Lucas shot back. You want to know why I'm still here? It's not because of the contract. The contract said 1 year minimum. I could have put in the bare minimum effort, showed up for court appearances, and counted down the days, but I didn't. I moved into her house. I take her son to preschool. I make sure she eats when she's working too hard. He looked directly at Judge Brennan. I fell in love with her. The courtroom went silent. I know how this looks, Lucas continued. I know the timing is suspicious, and the contract makes it look calculated. But, Your Honor, I'm a divorced single dad who spent 3 years rebuilding my life. I didn't enter this marriage lightly, and I'm not staying in it out of obligation. I'm here because Sienna is the strongest, most devoted mother I've ever seen, and her son deserves to be with her. Even if the marriage was fraudulent initially, Judge Brennan asked. The marriage was unconventional. It was strategic, but it wasn't fraudulent. We got legally married. We're living as a married couple, and regardless of how it started, what we have now is real. Davidson stood. Your Honor, this is clearly rehearsed. Mr. Bennett, Judge Brennan interrupted. Did Ms. Hale pay you to marry her? Lucas paused. The contract outlined financial compensation, yes. Have you accepted any money from her? No. Why not? Because somewhere around week 2 it stopped being about money. It stopped being about the contract at all. Judge Brennan studied him for a long moment. Step down, Mr. Bennett. Lucas returned to his seat. Sienna's hand found his under the table, trembling. Ms. Hale, the judge said, approach the bench. Sienna stood, looking small and terrified. Did you orchestrate this marriage to deceive this court? Judge Brennan asked bluntly. Sienna's voice was steady despite her fear. I asked Lucas to marry me because I was desperate. My ex-husband, a man who abandoned our son, was using the system against me. My lawyer said a stable home life would help. So yes, I orchestrated it. But, Your Honor, I didn't deceive anyone about what matters. Lucas is an incredible stepfather to Noah. He shows up every single day. And Her voice broke. I didn't expect to fall in love with him, but I did. Love is easy to claim in court, Davidson said. Then let me prove it. Sienna turned to face him. You want to know if this is real? Look at my life. I've cut my work hours in half. I'm home for dinner. I share my space with someone for the first time in my adult life. I trust Lucas with my son, with the most important person in my world. Does that sound fake to you? Marcus stood suddenly. Your Honor, this is absurd. Sit down, Mr. Westfield, Judge Brennan snapped. She looked between Lucas and Sienna. This is highly irregular. So is our situation, Lucas said. Judge Brennan was quiet for a long moment, studying them both. The entire courtroom held its breath. I'm calling a recess, she finally said. 1 hour. I need to review this contract and consider the testimony. The gavel fell and everyone stood. Lucas and Sienna stumbled into the hallway, both shaking. That was either really brave or really stupid, Veronica said, appearing beside them. I genuinely can't tell which. How bad is it? Sienna asked. Honestly, I don't know. Judge Brennan is unpredictable, but Lucas... She looked at him with something like respect. That was one hell of a testimony. The hour crawled by. They sat in a conference room, not talking, just existing in the same space. Sienna's hand stayed locked in Lucas's. Finally, they were called back. Judge Brennan looked tired. I've reviewed the contract. I've considered the testimony. And I'm going to be frank with both of you. This is one of the most unusual cases I've encountered in 20 years on the bench. Lucas's heart sank. That being said, she continued, unusual doesn't mean fraudulent. The law doesn't dictate how people fall in love. It doesn't require romance to precede marriage. What it requires is genuine commitment to the partnership and to the children involved. She looked at Lucas and Sienna. I believe you entered this marriage for strategic reasons. I also believe that what you have now is genuine. The question is whether that's enough. Please, Lucas thought, please let it be enough. The custody arrangement stands, Judge Brennan said finally. Ms. Hale retains primary physical custody. However, she fixed them both with a stern look. I'm ordering mandatory family counseling for 6 months. Not because I doubt your commitment, but because you two need to figure out what this marriage actually is. For the sake of the children, You need clarity. Yes, Your Honor, they said in unison. And if I find out this was an act, if you dissolve this marriage the moment you walk out of here, I will revisit this custody decision. Am I clear? Crystal clear, Sienna said, voice shaking. The gavel fell. They won. Outside the courthouse, Sienna broke down completely, sobbing against Lucas's chest while photographers snapped pictures and reporters shouted questions. He held her through it, shielding her from the cameras, not caring what the headlines would say. We did it, she gasped. We actually did it. We did it, Lucas echoed. Marcus stormed past them without a word, Bethany clicking along behind him in heels. Davidson looked furious. None of it mattered. They'd won. Victoria was waiting at Sienna's house with both kids. Emma saw them first and came running. Did you win? She demanded. We won, Lucas said, catching her in a hug. Noah launched himself at Sienna, who caught him and held on like she'd never let go. Mama, you're back. I'm back, baby. I'm always coming back. Victoria stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression complicated. Congratulations. Thank you, Sienna said quietly, for watching them. Their family. Victoria looked at Lucas. Can I talk to you? Alone? They stepped onto the deck while Sienna supervised an impromptu victory dance party in the living room. You really meant it, Victoria said. All of it. You're in love with her. Lucas nodded. Yeah, I am. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I thought... She shook her head. I thought you were being self-destructive, throwing yourself into someone else's problems to avoid your own. Maybe I was at first. But Victoria, this isn't about avoiding anything. This is about choosing something, someone. Victoria smiled, sad but genuine. She's lucky to have you. You're good at this. Being a partner. I learned from our mistakes. So did I. She touched his arm briefly. Be happy, Lucas. You deserve it. After she left, Lucas found Sienna on the floor with the kids building yet another elaborate fort. She looked up at him, eyes still red from crying, face radiant with joy. Get down here, she demanded. This fort needs structural support. Lucas joined them, and they spent the rest of the afternoon in a blanket fort, telling stories and eating too many cookies and being gloriously, messily happy. That night, after the kids were asleep, Lucas and Sienna sat on the deck under a sky that had finally cleared. So, Sienna said, we have to go to counseling. Guess so. And we have to figure out what this marriage actually is. Probably a good idea. She turned to look at him. What do you want it to be? Lucas thought about contracts and courtrooms and desperate midnight pleas. Then he thought about pancake breakfasts and bedtime stories and the way Sienna's hand fit perfectly in his. Real, he said simply. I want it to be real. Sienna smiled, the real smile that changed her whole face. Me too. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, she rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered, for staying, for fighting, for loving us. Always, Lucas said. And he meant it. The mandatory counseling session started the following Tuesday in an office that smelled like lavender and felt aggressively therapeutic. Dr. Patricia Moreno was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and the unshakable composure of someone who'd heard every story twice. So, she said, settling into her chair with a notepad, tell me about your marriage. Lucas and Sienna sat on opposite ends of a couch that was clearly designed to make people sit closer together. They looked at each other, then away. It's complicated, they said simultaneously. Dr. Moreno smiled. They always are. But let's start simple. How did you two meet? I married her sister, Lucas said. He showed up to family dinners and was polite to me, Sienna added. And now you're married to each other. Now we're married to each other, they confirmed. Dr. Moreno made a note. All right, let's unpack that. The first few sessions were brutal. Doctor. Moreno had a talent for asking questions that exposed every raw nerve, every unspoken fear, every assumption they'd been avoiding. Sienna, when Lucas says he loves you, what do you hear? Sienna's hands twisted in her lap. I hear that he thinks he loves me, but I also hear an expiration date. Everyone who's ever said they loved me eventually left. And Lucas, when Sienna pulls away emotionally, what does that bring up for you? Lucas stared at the ceiling. It reminds me of my marriage to Victoria. How I was never enough, never quite what she needed. How trying harder just made things worse. So you're both operating from places of old hurt, Dr. Moreno observed. Sienna expects abandonment. Lucas expects inadequacy. And you're trying to build a marriage on that foundation. When you put it that way, it sounds doomed, Sienna said quietly. Not doomed, just difficult. Dr. Moreno leaned forward. But here's what I'm seeing. You both keep showing up. Sienna, you could have fought the custody battle alone, but you asked for help. Lucas, you could have walked away a dozen times, but you stayed. That tells me something. What does it tell you that? Lucas asked. That you're both braver than you think. They left that session in silence, driving home through Seattle rain that had returned with a vengeance. Sienna stared out the window while Lucas navigated traffic. Do you think we're making a mistake? She asked suddenly. Trying to turn this into something real? Do you? I asked first. Lucas pulled into their driveway. Their driveway, he noticed, not hers anymore, and turned off the engine. I think we're already real, Sienna. We're just scared to admit it. Being scared seems reasonable. We did this backwards. Maybe. Or maybe we did it exactly right for us. She looked at him then, really looked. You're annoyingly optimistic, you know that? Someone has to balance out your pessimism. I'm not pessimistic, I'm realistic. You're terrified, Lucas said gently. There's a difference. Sienna's eyes went bright. Of course I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'm going to wake up one day and you'll realize this was all a massive mistake, that you'll look at me and see obligation instead of choice, that Noah will get attached and then you'll leave and he'll learn that fathers always leave. Lucas kissed her, cutting off the spiral of fears. When he pulled back, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. I'm not leaving, he said for what felt like the 100th time. I need you to hear that, really hear it. I'm not Marcus. I'm not your parents. I'm not even the guy who married you out of pity. I'm the guy who's choosing you every single day. Even when I'm impossible? Especially then. She laughed wetly. You're either very patient or slightly insane. Both. Definitely both. Inside, they found Emma teaching Noah a complicated hand-clapping game, while the nanny, a college student named Melissa, who actually seemed to enjoy chaos, supervised dinner preparation. Mama, Lucas! Noah abandoned the game and launched himself at them. We made spaghetti and it's really messy. I can see that, Sienna said, eyeing the sauce splattered across his shirt. Did any of it make it into the pot? Some of it, Emma said proudly. The rest is artistic expression. Lucas caught Melissa's eye. She grinned and shrugged as if to say, kids will be kids. They ate dinner at the big table, all 6 of them. Lucas, Sienna, Emma, Noah, Melissa, and Peanut the elephant who got his own chair. Conversation flowed chaotically, everyone talking over each other, arguing about whether dinosaurs would eat spaghetti and what elephants thought about marinara sauce. This, Lucas thought, watching Sienna laugh at something Noah said while simultaneously wiping sauce off Emma's face. This is what family looks like. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and Melissa had gone home, Lucas found Sienna in her office, staring at her laptop with the glazed expression of someone who'd been reading the same email for 20 minutes. You're supposed to be cutting back on work hours, he reminded her. I am cutting back. This is what cutting back looks like. She closed the laptop with a sigh. I'm just trying to catch up on everything I missed while we were dealing with court stuff. The company didn't collapse while you were gone. I know. That's what scares me. Lucas leaned against her desk. Explain that. Sienna spun her chair to face him. For years, I told myself I had to work this hard because everything depended on me. The company, Noah's future, our security, it was all on my shoulders. But these past few months, I've delegated more. I've trusted other people, and nothing fell apart. That's good, right? It's terrifying, she corrected. Because if I don't need to work 80-hour weeks to keep everything running, then what was I doing it for? What was I sacrificing time with Noah for? What? Her voice cracked. What if I was just hiding, using work as an excuse to avoid actually living? Lucas pulled her up from the chair and into his arms. She came willingly, pressing her face against his chest. You weren't hiding, he said firmly. You were surviving. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, but Sienna, you don't have to just survive anymore. You're allowed to actually live. She pulled back to look at him. I don't know how. I've been in survival mode for so long I don't remember what anything else feels like. Then we'll figure it out together. That's what partners do. Partners? She repeated softly. We keep saying that word. Because it's true. Sienna kissed him then, slow and deep, and full of all the things she still couldn't say out loud. When they broke apart, she rested her head on his shoulder. Lucas? Yeah? Can we sleep in the same room tonight? Not because we have to, just because I want to. Lucas's heart did something complicated. Yeah, we can do that. They'd been married for 3 months, lived together for 2, and this was the first time they were choosing to share a bed without an excuse. It felt monumental and terrifying, and exactly right. Sienna's room, their room now, Lucas supposed, was enormous and impersonal, like a luxury hotel. But when Sienna curled up next to him, her head on his chest and her arm draped across his waist, it suddenly felt like home. This is nice, she murmured, already half asleep. Yeah, Lucas agreed. It really is. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Lucas officially moved the rest of his things out of his apartment, giving it up entirely. Emma's room at Sienna's house gained more personality. Posters of dinosaurs, a bookshelf overflowing with novels, strings of fairy lights she'd insisted on installing herself. Noah started calling Lucas Dad sometimes, then catching himself and looking worried, like he'd crossed an invisible line. You can call me Dad if you want, Lucas told him one morning while making pancakes. They're Saturday tradition now. Noah's eyes went wide. Really? Really? If that feels right to you. What about my other dad? It was the question Lucas had been dreading. You can have more than one dad, buddy, just like Emma has me and her mom has a new boyfriend. Families can be all different shapes. Noah considered this with his usual gravity. Okay, you're my dad, and Marcus is my other dad. This sounds good to me. Dad? Yeah? I like you better. Lucas's throat went tight. I like you too, kiddo. Emma appeared in the kitchen, hair sticking up in every direction. Are we having a moment? Because I'm hungry and moments make me uncomfortable. We're having pancakes, Lucas said. Good, pancakes I can handle. The counseling sessions continued, slowly chipping away at the walls they'd both built. Doctor, Moreno had a gift for making them actually talk to each other instead of at each other. Sienna, I want you to finish this sentence. When Lucas gets close, I feel scared, Sienna said immediately. Then quieter, safe, both at the same time. And Lucas, when Sienna works late, what story do you tell yourself? Lucas shifted uncomfortably. That she's choosing work over us, that I'm not important enough to come home for. Is that true? No, Sienna said firmly, reaching for his hand. Lucas, when I work late, it's because I'm still learning how to let go. Not because you're not important. She swallowed hard. You're the most important thing. You and the kids. Then tell me that, Lucas said. When you're going to be late, don't just text that you have meetings. Tell me you wish you were home. Tell me you're thinking about us. Let me in, Sienna. I'm trying. I know. And I'm trying to be patient. But sometimes I need more than trying. Dr. Moreno watched them like a proud teacher. This is good. This is exactly the kind of honesty that builds real intimacy. It feels awful, Sienna muttered. The best growth usually does. By month 4, something had shifted. They'd stopped sleeping on opposite sides of the bed. Sienna started texting Lucas random thoughts throughout the day. Lucas learned to read her stress levels and would show up with coffee and a quiet place to decompress. They fought sometimes, real fights about parenting styles and household responsibilities and whose turn it was to deal with the overflowing hamper, but they always came back to each other. They were becoming real. Emma noticed first, of course. You guys are gross now, she announced one evening, watching Lucas kiss Sienna hello after work. Gross how? Sienna asked. Gross like actual married people. It's weird. You said we should act married, Lucas pointed out. Yeah, but I didn't think you'd actually do it. Ugh, next you'll be holding hands in public. We already hold hands in public, Sienna said, demonstrating by lacing her fingers through Lucas's. Emma made exaggerated gagging noises. Noah thought this was hilarious and started imitating her, leading to a full-scale theatrical production of disgust that ended with both kids dissolving into giggles. Our children are weird, Sienna observed. Our children, Lucas repeated. I like the sound of that. Victoria came for dinner in late November, ostensibly to discuss Thanksgiving plans, but really to investigate what was happening with Lucas and Sienna. She watched them move around each other in the kitchen, Lucas chopping vegetables while Sienna stirred something on the stove, their movements synchronized in a way that only came from practice. You're different, Victoria said to Lucas while Sienna was helping Noah wash his hands. Different how? Happy. You look happy. She paused. You didn't look like this with me, not even in the beginning. Lucas set down his knife. Victoria? No, it's okay. I'm not. She took a breath. I'm not jealous. Or maybe I am, a little, but not in the way you think. I'm jealous that you figured out how to do this right, how to actually be partners with someone. We're still figuring it out. But you're figuring it out together. That's what we never did. Victoria smiled sadly. I'm glad you found this, Lucas, even if it started completely insane. Thank you. Just take care of her, okay? Sienna's tougher than she looks, but she breaks hard when she breaks. I'm not going to break her. No, Victoria agreed, watching Sienna laugh at something Noah said. I don't think you are. Thanksgiving was chaos in the best possible way. They hosted, Emma's idea, enthusiastically supported by Noah, and somehow ended up with a guest list that included Victoria and her new boyfriend, Lucas's brother and his family, Veronica, Melissa, the nanny, and 3 of Noah's preschool friends whose parents were traveling. The house was too full and too loud and absolutely perfect. Lucas found Sienna on the deck during dessert, staring at the water with a soft smile. You okay? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. More than okay. She leaned back against him. I was just thinking, last Thanksgiving, Noah and I ate takeout Chinese food alone because I couldn't face doing a whole dinner, and now this. She gestured at the house behind them, full of light and laughter and people. How did this happen? You knocked on my door at midnight. Best worst decision I ever made. Lucas kissed the top of her head. Want to know a secret? Always. I'm pretty sure I'm completely in love with you. Like, terrifyingly. No going back in love with you. Sienna turned in his arms, eyes suspiciously bright. Pretty sure? Okay, definitely sure. Absolutely certain. Would testify under oath. You already did that. And I'd do it again. He cupped her face. Sienna, this started as a favor and a contract, but it became my life. You became my life. You and Noah and Emma and this whole beautiful mess we've made. It is a mess, she agreed, smiling through tears. The best kind. She kissed him there on the deck, with their house full of family behind them and the water stretching dark and infinite ahead. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead to his. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for a while. I was just too scared to say it. And now? Now I'm still scared. But I'm saying it anyway. Inside, Emma's voice called out, Dad! Sienna! Noah's trying to feed pie to Peanut again. They laughed and headed back inside, hand in hand, to deal with the latest domestic crisis. December brought the final custody evaluation. Marcus had one last chance to challenge the arrangement, and everyone held their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did. Marcus showed up to the supervised visit with Noah, spent an awkward hour trying to engage a 3-year-old he barely knew, and left looking defeated. His lawyer called Veronica the next day with a settlement offer. Marcus would accept the current custody arrangement in exchange for Sienna, agreeing not to pursue increased child support. He's giving up, Veronica said on speakerphone, sounding almost surprised. Marcus is actually giving up. Sienna's hand found Lucas's automatically. Why? Because his new wife doesn't actually want a 3-year-old disrupting their lifestyle, would be my guess. And because you two have built something he can't tear down. You're stable, happy, clearly committed. There's no angle for him to exploit anymore. After they hung up, Sienna just sat there, staring at nothing. It's over, she said finally. It's actually over. Yeah, Lucas said. It is. Noah gets to stay with us. He was always going to stay with us. Sienna turned to him, and Lucas saw all the fear and fight drain out of her, leaving something softer behind. I can stop being scared now. You can stop being scared now, he confirmed. She cried then, great heaving sobs of relief and exhaustion and joy. Lucas held her through it, anchoring her to earth while she finally let go. That night, they told the kids together. The court stuff is done, Sienna said, with Noah on her lap and Emma pressed against her side. Marcus isn't going to try to take you away anymore, baby. You get to stay right here with us. Noah processed this with his usual seriousness. Forever? Forever, Lucas promised. And you're staying too? You and Emma? We're not going anywhere. Noah's smile could have lit the city. Good, because I like our family. Me too, Emma said. Even though you're all super embarrassing. You love it, Lucas teased. Maybe a little. They celebrated with ice cream for dinner, a one-time exception that Emma insisted should become tradition. Noah agreed enthusiastically. Sienna and Lucas exchanged glances and surrendered to the chaos of parenting. Later, much later, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Lucas and Sienna ended up in their bed, tangled together in the dark. Lucas? Sienna's voice was soft. Yeah? The contract expires in 8 months. Lucas's heart skipped. I know. What do you want to do about that? He was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. I want to burn it. I want to take that contract out of your safe and light it on fire and never think about it again. And then what? And then we just be married, really married, not because of custody or courts or legal obligations, just because we choose each other. Sienna propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at him in the darkness. You want to stay married to me? After everything? Sienna, I want to stay married to you because of everything, because you're brilliant and stubborn, and you love our kids so fiercely it takes my breath away. Because you've learned to let me in, and I've learned to trust that you won't push me away. Because what we built, it's real. It's messy and complicated and nothing like I planned, but it's real. I don't have a ring, she said suddenly. When we got married, we just grabbed cheap bands for the ceremony, but if we're doing this, really doing this, I want to do it right. Lucas kissed her softly. We can get rings. And I want vows. Real ones, the kind we actually mean. We can do that too. And I want to marry you again. Not in a courthouse, not because we have to, because I want to. Lucas felt something enormous swell in his chest. Are you proposing to me right now? Maybe. Is that crazy? Completely insane, he agreed. Let's do it. They planned it for the spring, a small ceremony in their backyard overlooking the bay. Just family and close friends, nothing elaborate or expensive. Emma and Noah would be part of it. Emma as junior bridesmaid, Noah as ring bearer, both of them integral to the vows. Sienna hired a wedding planner who kept trying to make things fancier, and Lucas kept vetoing ideas. They compromised on simplicity with touches of elegance, fairy lights strung through the trees, wildflowers instead of formal arrangements, a cake Noah helped decorate that listed slightly to one side. The morning of the wedding, Lucas woke up to find Emma sitting on his bed. You're really doing this, she said, really doing it. You're happy? Happier than I've been in a long time. Emma nodded, satisfied. Good, because Sienna's happy too. And Noah. And even I'm kind of happy, though I'll deny it if you tell anyone. Your secret's safe with me. She hugged him fiercely. I'm glad you opened the door that night, when Sienna showed up. Me too, sweetheart. The ceremony was perfect in its imperfection. Sienna walked down a simple aisle to where Lucas waited, both of them already crying before she reached him. The officiant, Dr. Moreno, who'd agreed to get ordained for the occasion, smiled at them with genuine warmth. We're gathered here today, she began, to celebrate a marriage that already exists but is choosing to begin again. Lucas and Sienna have been legally married for 9 months. They've weathered custody battles and personal demons and the terrifying work of actually letting someone in. And now they're here to make new promises. Lucas took Sienna's hands. When you showed up at my door, I thought I was helping you. I didn't realize you'd be helping me just as much. You taught me that love doesn't have to look a certain way to be real. That family is who you choose, not just who you're born to. That sometimes the messiest beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. His voice roughened. I promise to keep showing up, to keep choosing you even when it's hard, to love our kids and build this life we've made and never, ever walk away. Sienna's tears were falling freely now. I came to you desperate and scared, and you said yes without hesitation. You've spent 9 months proving that not everyone leaves, that I'm worth fighting for, that our family is worth fighting for. She squeezed his hands. I promise to let you in, even when my instinct is to close off, to trust you with my fears and my failures and my whole heart, to be your partner in every sense of the word, and to love you, really, truly love you, every single day for the rest of our lives. Emma and Noah brought forward new rings, not expensive but meaningful, chosen together from a small jeweler who'd listened to their story and created something unique. With this ring, Lucas said, sliding it onto Sienna's finger, I choose you, again and always. With this ring, Sienna echoed, her hand shaking as she placed his band. I choose you. Forever, this time. Dr. Moreno beamed at them. By the power vested in me, and more importantly by the power you've given each other, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again, you may kiss. They did, to cheers from their small gathering. Emma and Noah rushed forward, demanding to be part of the hug, and they all collapsed together in a tangle of arms and laughter and joy. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted, casual and warm, full of food and music and people they loved. Victoria made a toast that made everyone cry. Lucas's brother told embarrassing stories from their childhood. Melissa caught the bouquet and looked mortified. As the sun set over Elliott Bay, turning the water gold and pink, Lucas found Sienna standing at the edge of their property, looking out at the view. Penny, for your thoughts? He asked, wrapping his arms around her. I was just thinking about that night. When I knocked on your door. How terrified I was. How certain that I was going to lose everything. And instead, I gained everything. She turned in his arms. A partner, a family, a life I didn't know I could have. We both did. Emma and Noah ran past, chasing fireflies in the gathering dusk. Their laughter echoed across the yard. Think we'll ever tell them the truth? Sienna asked. About how we really started? Lucas considered. Maybe. When they're older. When they can understand that sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. They'll think we're crazy. We are crazy. He kissed her forehead. But we're crazy together. Together, Sienna repeated, smiling. I like the sound of that. The party continued around them, music and voices and the gentle clink of glasses, but for a moment they just stood there, wrapped in each other, watching their children play under a sky full of stars. This was what they'd fought for. Not the house, or the money, or even the custody arrangement. This, the messy, beautiful, chaotic reality of family. Of choosing each other every single day. Of love that started as strategy and became truth. Lucas thought back to that rainy night 9 months ago, to the desperate woman on his doorstep and the decision that changed everything. He'd said yes, thinking he was helping someone in need. He hadn't realized he was saving himself too. Hey, Sienna said softly. Where'd you go? Just thinking about how lucky I am. We're both lucky. Yeah, Lucas agreed, pulling her closer. We really are. Inside the house, someone turned up the music. Emma appeared at the door, shouting that they were cutting the cake, and if the grown-ups didn't hurry, she and Noah were eating the whole thing themselves. We should probably, Sienna started. Probably, Lucas agreed. But they stayed there a moment longer, holding each other under the emerging stars. No longer strangers bound by contract, but partners bound by choice. A family, not because they had to be, but because they wanted to be. And that, Lucas thought as Sienna took his hand and led him back toward the light and laughter and life they'd built together, made all the difference. The desperate knock at midnight had become a beginning. The impossible request had become a promise. And the marriage that was never supposed to be real had become the most real thing either of them had ever known. They walked back to their house, to their children and their friends and their future, hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Together. always together.